all kinds of nicknames around, but the real conversation isn't about the name. It's about that halftime show and why so many viewers felt let down. Before jumping to conclusions, here's some context. There's a clip going around from a guy online named Joe Bonham, Bonham, if you want to look him up. He interviewed NFL players before the halftime show even happened. And what came out of those interviews? Total disconnect. A lot of those players admitted they had no clue who Bad Bunny was. Not one song, not one album, nothing. One of them even said, "I thought it was a girl." And when he found out it wasn't, he assumed something else and said, "I thought it was a gay dude, which I can almost put my life on it." That wasn't even meant as disrespect. It just shows how unfamiliar some audiences were with him. So think about that for a second. If a big part of the NFL crowd doesn't even recognize the artist, how are they supposed to feel excited when he hits the stage? That's the gap people are reacting to. Not just the performance, but the mismatch between the artist and the audience. Now things got even more heated after that. One guy straight up said, "He's a gay dude. I want to call him the F word, but I'm really trying to be saved." That right there shows how emotional people were getting, but let's keep it real. Throwing insults doesn't make the argument stronger, it just makes it louder. Then he doubled down and said, "Nobody listens to Bad Bunny, bro." That's how out of touch he felt with the whole thing. He even added, "Then I found out he don't even do nothing in English." What the F? I don't know. No Spanish. I know how to tell you to put your hands behind your back. That mean turn around, that mean you under arrest. He tried to turn it into a joke about only knowing basic commands, saying, "I don't know no Spanish 'cause I'm an American. I barely know English." It was messy, but it shows the culture gap he was talking about. And then, plot twist, he jumps straight into a mattress ad like nothing happened. He starts praising Brooklyn bedding, saying his sleep changed overnight. "I fall asleep way faster. I stay asleep, and I wake up feeling like I actually rested." He even said he bought one for his mama and his mother-in-law, trying to get the whole family upgraded. Before buying, he took their sleep quiz, answered a few simple questions, and got matched with the perfect mattress. From halftime drama to bedtime comfort in one breath, that transition was wild. He kept pushing the mattress heavy. He said what he loves most is the comfort and the value. Factory direct quality without all that retail circus energy. No pushy showroom workers, no crazy markups, no awkward sales pressure. It shows up rolled tight in a box, you open it, and boom, it sets up in minutes. No strange smells, no drama, and it sleeps cool through the night. He made sure to mention Brooklyn bedding has been around since 1995. Every mattress is designed, assembled, and shipped straight out of Arizona, from their own factory. That's how they keep the quality high and the price reasonable. You also get a 120-night sleep trial, a limited lifetime warranty, and free shipping right to your door. He made it clear. He loves his Brooklyn bedding mattress and thinks you would too. Then he drops the promo. Go to brooklynbedding.com/Tatum and get 30% off with code Tatum. Simple pitch. Sleep better and feel the difference. But just like that, the vibe flips again. "Let's play a couple clips," he says. Suddenly, the focus shifts back to the halftime storm. He mentions people on the news talking about the performance. "Clip 103, he calls out. And here's where it gets heated again. He says, "And Bad Bunny is doing all kind of nasty stuff and kissing other dudes and all kind of stuff. But y'all don't care about that." Then he switches it to Kid Rock, saying people want to dig up something from 150 years ago about him instead of talking about how Kid Rock was speaking about faith and changing his life. But y'all want to bring up something old about Kid Rock. Now, the argument isn't just about a halftime show. It's about media focus, double standards, and who gets criticized versus who gets defended. Then he cranked the volume up again. He said, "But Bad Bunny is I want to say it, but I'm trying to be a good Christian." You could tell he was holding himself back, but the frustration was still loud. He pointed at the screen and asked, "Look at what he's putting on TV in front of your kids." That was his angle. Not just the artist, but the visibility of the performance. He called for the clip and reacted hard. He described it as two dudes bumping peepees, saying that's what people were defending. That's how he framed it, as something he believed crossed a line for mainstream television. He questioned why that kind of display was considered acceptable to some viewers, especially during a major broadcast event. Then he added another layer to it, the language barrier. He said people still didn't know what was being said because it was in Spanish. "We still don't know what he's saying," he argued, tying it back to his belief that the audience couldn't connect with it. When the next clip rolled, he shifted the focus again, this time to audience demographics. He claimed, "No white people ain't listening to that stuff." Then he compared it to rap artists like Nelly and Ludacris. He talked about going to a concert at a golf tournament and being shocked that white fans were singing every word. He even admitted that growing up, he thought artists like Nelly, Ludacris, and Ja Rule were only popular in certain communities until he saw otherwise. His point? Language matters. He argued that when artists perform in English, the broader audience connects easier. Whether people agree or not, that's the argument he was pushing. Connection, culture, and who the mainstream audience relates to. Then he moves on again, asking who else has a take on it. He says, "We got a VER on there. Let's go to the VER. Roll it." And once that clip starts, the energy jumps again. The speaker in that clip goes straight into it, talking about unity, then flipping it into frustration about Black History Month. He claims there wasn't a single Black performer highlighted during that Super Bowl moment. He argues that while it was February, a month that recognizes Black history, the spotlight seemed focused on Latin culture instead. He pushes it even further, saying Latino heritage was being celebrated on that stage. Spanish language, Latin music, full cultural expression, and in his view, Black representation wasn't front and center the way he expected. That's the angle he's taking, whether people agree with it or not. Then he makes it political, saying certain communities are being taken for granted and that support during elections isn't being rewarded with visibility. He throws out strong words, calling the artist Black Dumb Bunny, or whatever his name is, clearly frustrated and mixing things up in the process. He also questions the language barrier again. He says if someone went on stage speaking Japanese at a huge American event, most viewers wouldn't understand it. His argument is about connection, claiming people can't engage with something they don't understand. It's loud, it's emotional, and it's definitely a heated take. And just like that, he's ready to move on to the next opinion in line. Then he switches gears again. "Come on, Shannon Sharp. Unc, you think?" And he pauses like he's about to call somebody out face to face. He starts questioning whether Shannon is just out of touch or distracted by personal drama that's been floating around online. He brings up that viral Instagram Live situation and basically says, "You don't accidentally go live. There are steps to that." He also references a lawsuit that's been reported in the media, implying that with all that going on, maybe Shannon shouldn't be lecturing anybody right now. His tone is clear. Don't try to stand on a moral high ground when your own house looks messy. That's the energy he's coming with. But then he circles back to the halftime issue. He says the problem isn't that the artist is from another country. He insists nobody's mad about nationality. His claim is that the frustration is about language, about not understanding what's being said during a massive American broadcast. He compares it to other performers. He mentions U2 and the Rolling Stones, saying they performed in English, so the audience could connect and sing along. His argument is simple. If people can't understand the lyrics, they feel disconnected from the performance. He doubles down, saying it's not about background, it's about accessibility. That's the lane he's choosing, whether people agree with it or not. He keeps the train moving. All right, do we got somebody else with a bad take? Then he says, I think Don Lemon got a bad take. You can hear the sarcasm already loading up. He throws a jab, saying, that dude can't even do an interview without somebody standing behind him. That's how he frames it, more style than substance in his eyes. Then he calls for the clip to roll. Now the debate shifts into history and language again. The speaker in the clip argues that native tribes didn't speak Spanish either. He basically says, if we're going to rewind history and question language roots, then let's be consistent about it. He's accusing critics of picking and choosing which history they want to highlight and which parts they ignore. Then the tone turns sharp again. He mocks the idea that Spanish is suddenly controversial, questioning why it's fine in some contexts, but not others. His frustration sounds personal, like he believes people are moving the goalposts depending on the argument. When the clip continues, the topic shifts to Puerto Rico. The speaker says, Puerto Rico is a part of America. Then he brings up the whole stolen land conversation, suggesting there's hypocrisy in how people frame territory and history. He's basically saying, if we're going to talk about land, language, and ownership, then let's talk about all of it, not just the parts that fit a headline. By this point, it's less about halftime and more about culture wars, identity, and who gets to define what's American on a national stage. And just like that, he's ready to roll the next clip, this time about backlash at a bar over Turning Point being played. Then he fires off again, defending that business that told critics not to come back. He says he respects companies that stand their ground instead of folding under pressure. His mindset is simple. If you don't like what a private business is doing, just leave. Don't try to shut it down. Don't try to bully it. Just walk away. That's the energy he's backing. Right after that, he pivots into something personal. He invites everyone to join him on February 25th at Longbow Golf Course for a charity golf event. He says this tournament means a lot to him because it's the only one he's ever played in. And this year, they're the title sponsors. That means he wants to show up big and make it count. He calls on supporters directly. Don't let him down. Come golf, show up, have fun, and back something positive. He says the link will be in the description, with tickets around $200 for an individual or $700 for a foursome. It's about community, connection, and supporting a cause. He also mentions that businesses can sponsor a whole, which helps fund Save the Storks, an organization he says he's worked with for about 5 years. According to him, they've helped launch multiple mobile medical clinics, often called stork buses, across different cities. He even talks about cutting the ribbon at one launch event in Texas, possibly the Dallas or Arlington area. These mobile clinics are designed to support women facing unexpected pregnancies by offering medical services and counseling in a non-hospital setting. For him, this isn't just about golf. It's about backing a cause he believes in and rallying his audience to step up too. He keeps it rolling and says, why sit around complaining if you believe there's a solution right in front of you? In his view, instead of arguing nonstop, people should support organizations they believe actually address the issue. That's why he brings it back to Save the Storks again and tells people to show up, have fun, and be part of something positive. He paints the golf event like it's the highlight of the month. Cigars, laughs, good vibes, all for a cause. He's hyping it up heavy, saying it's going to be the most fun thing he does all month. That's the mood he's selling. Then he switches gears again and says, let's play Grandma real quick, because apparently Grandma had something to say too. The clip rolls, and Grandma jumps straight in. He ain't even speaking English. She argues the issue isn't about immigrants. It's about understanding what's being said during the performance. Her point is simple. How can the audience enjoy it if they don't understand the message? She compares it to hearing random sounds without context, saying if there's activism or meaning behind it, most viewers wouldn't even know. She also claims that in other countries, major national events usually highlight the native language. That's her perspective, whether people agree or not. And it keeps the debate centered on language, connection, and who the main audience is supposed to be. He wraps it up still confused about the hype. He says he doesn't even understand how the artist got that big if most of the mainstream crowd can't follow the language. That's his perspective. He keeps circling back to connection and comprehension. Then he shifts to Kid Rock and says Kid Rock had something to say that people really responded to. The clip rolls, and he reacts instantly. Just that little part right there, way better than everything Bad Bunny was doing. That's his opinion, loud and clear. He admits again he didn't understand what was being said in the halftime set, but what really gets him fired up is what he sees as selective outrage. He says commentators like Don Lemon are bringing up lyrics Kid Rock said years ago, digging deep into the past. Then he brings up other artists, the notorious B.I.G., Tupac, and 3-6 Mafia, arguing that many classic hip-hop acts had controversial lyrics too. His point isn't about erasing anyone. It's about consistency. He's questioning why certain artists get celebrated despite aggressive themes in their old music, while others get dragged for things they said decades back. For him, it all comes down to double standards and who the media chooses to spotlight or criticize. If you want more breakdowns like this, raw takes, culture debates, and the stuff people argue about behind the scenes, make sure you subscribe to Juicy Reel and stay locked in for the next drop. He closes it out still scratching his head. He says he doesn't even get how the artist became that popular when most of the mainstream audience can't understand the language. That confusion is what keeps fueling his whole argument. Then he pivots to Kid Rock and says Kid Rock had a few words that really hit home for a lot of people. The clip rolls, and he reacts fast. Just that little part right there, way better than everything Bad Bunny was doing. That's his take, straight up. He admits again he didn't understand the halftime lyrics, but what really bothers him is what he sees as selective criticism. He says commentators like Don Lemon are digging up things Kid Rock said years ago, acting outraged now. Meanwhile, he points to artists like the notorious B.I.G., Tupac, and 3-6 Mafia, all legends with intense, sometimes violent lyrics in their catalogs. His argument: if we're going to judge old lyrics, judge everybody the same. Don't rewrite the rules depending on who's in the spotlight. That's the double standard he believes is happening. If you want more real talk, bold debates, and breakdowns they don't always spell out on TV, hit that subscribe button on Juicy Reel and stay locked in. Because we're just getting started.
The Grammys are not just an award show, but a time capsule of culture. It reflects the political climate of our time, what moves people and what people are speaking out against. It highlights true artistry, giving a glimpse into the future of music and who the next generation of tastemakers will be.
The Grammys aren't just another awards night, they're a straight-up time capsule of culture. They show where the world is at, what people care about, what sparks outrage, and what voices are finally getting heard. Every year, it's a snapshot of the political mood, the creative risks, and the artists shaping what's next in music. The wins, the snubs, the speeches, all of it tells a deeper story. Not just who walked away with a trophy, but what the industry is choosing to reward, what it's quietly resisting, and what it totally slept on and is now scrambling to catch up to. This isn't about stats or applause. It's about power, influence, and momentum. So this isn't just a basic rundown of winners and losers. This is about reading between the lines, predicting where music is heading, and figuring out which artists are about to level up hard next year. What did these Grammys reveal about voting habits going forward? Who got nominated and who's about to explode next? Welcome back to Nikki at Night. I'm your host, Nikki Reardon, and I'm seriously hyped to break this all down today. I was actually there last night thanks to YouTube, and it was unreal. Walking the carpet, snapping pics, hitting the glam bot, posted up in a private suite the whole night. Big love to YouTube for that invite. It was a once-in-a-lifetime vibe. And let's be real, the performances this year absolutely went off. I cannot wait to break all of this down with you because, trust me, I have a lot of thoughts. And seriously, thank you for watching, because this whole thing still feels unreal. The fact that this is something I get to do and actually call work is wild to me. It doesn't even feel real half the time. Every single view, every click, every minute you spend watching makes this possible for me. You're the reason music journalism gets taken seriously again. The reason people actually want to talk about artistry, intention, and what it really means to be a musician. That support is changing my life in real time, and I don't take that lightly at all. Now let's get into my favorite category of the night, Best New Artist. I called Olivia Dean, period. I genuinely think she could take Album of the Year next year, which is insane to even say out loud. Technically, The Art of Loving still counts for next year's album cycle, so we might be stepping straight into the year of Olivia Dean. Her performance was unreal. She has one of the most magnetic auras I've ever seen, no exaggeration. The way she smiles, the way she moves, the way she holds the stage, you can tell she's fully living her dream. It's beautiful to watch. And her acceptance speech? Absolutely flawless. Her speech was tight, meaningful, and quietly powerful. It hit the political side without forcing it, and she spoke so clearly about what this moment meant to her. Hearing her talk about her experience as the granddaughter of an immigrant was genuinely beautiful, and it landed hard for me personally. You could feel the pride, the gratitude, and the history all wrapped into one moment. I also loved that they brought back the Best New Artist medley. That is always such a smart move. It gives new artists real stage time, not just a name on a screen. For a lot of viewers, this is the first real introduction to some of these artists, and that matters. Everyone already knows Gaga, Kendrick, and Bad Bunny. The world's locked in on them. This was about saying, pay attention, these are the next ones up. That focused intention felt so clear. These are the artists who shook the room this year, and this is the next generation stepping forward. Giving each of them their own moment on that stage was special. But there were a few performances that completely stole my attention. Lola Young had my jaw on the floor. Going minimalist with just a piano, and her voice was the smartest possible move. When you're sharing a medley with that many people, stripping it all back is power. Just her, the piano, and a slow, emotional version of Messy. That's it? No distractions? Her vocals are unreal, like actually outrageous live. I need that version on streaming immediately. Please put that on Spotify because it was stunning. Somehow her voice sounded even better live, and that's rare. Absolutely insane performance. She is absolutely on track to be remembered as one of the greatest vocalists of this generation. No doubt about it. That voice is not normal. And I loved that Somber chose to perform 12 to 12, because that is hands down his strongest song to date. It really shows his full range, not just as a singer, but as a songwriter and producer too. You can tell there's way more depth to him as an artist than people might expect. We've seen Back to Friends and Undressed, which fit that sad boy, emo-leaning era perfectly. But after this performance, I'm like, wait a second. You could drop a full disco album and I would eat that up immediately. No hesitation. And the look? Insane. I love how he always dresses like his music sounds. That giant disco ball energy, the custom metallic fit, it literally felt like 12 to 12 turned into an outfit. That's what a Grammys look should be to me. Full commitment, no fear. I also loved seeing him actually move on stage. Guys barely do choreography anymore, and it's wild to me. Is he a full dancer like Cat's Eye? No. But the little groove, the shimmy, the effort, that's what matters. We want performance. Look at what Sabrina's doing. Look at what Addison did. The girls are going all in. I want to see men try that hard too. Him easing into movement is such a good sign. Honestly, if he took dance classes, his stage presence would level up fast. I need more guys going for it like that, period. The transition into Addison Rae was absolutely wild. I was fully gagged. The energy shift was insane. It was bold, fearless, and completely locked in. That moment snapped everything into place and instantly raised the temperature in the room. It was pure pop star confidence. No hesitation, no holding back. If you're not losing your mind when she performs gnarly at Coachella, I don't know what to tell you. If you're not right up at the barricade for Addison, respectfully, move out of the way. That's the energy she's bringing right now. This is about fun, movement, and letting loose again. Shake it, dance, jump, do something. Music is supposed to feel exciting. We need to bring joy back into performances. I want to see people moving, committing, and actually enjoying themselves. This isn't about standing still and looking cool. It's about giving us a moment. Addison fully understood the assignment and ran with it. I also want to talk about Alex Warren because that situation was genuinely rough. You could tell something was off, and that's terrifying when it's your very first Grammys. Performing live on TV, suspended in the air, everything going wrong at once. That's a nightmare scenario. But honestly, as a viewer, it did not come across badly at all. You could see how hard he was trying to stay focused and push through it. Given the circumstances, he handled it with real composure. That actually earned him a lot of respect from me. Showing up and finishing strong when things aren't perfect says a lot. All right, next up, let's talk about Song of the Year. Birds of a Feather alone pulling billions of streams in a single year says everything. That project is already generational, no debate. And honestly, this is Billy's strongest body of work to date. The songwriting on Wildflower is stunning. It digs into past relationships, personal mistakes, shared blame, and the emotional weight that comes with all of it. It's vulnerable, it's uncomfortable, and it's painfully honest. The vocal performance on that song is next level. Some of the best vocals of her entire career, easily. There's restraint, emotion, and control all wrapped together, and it hits hard every time. Something this Grammys really confirmed for me is that the rules are flexible. Technically, Wildflower dropped last year, but since it wasn't officially pushed as a single until this year, they let it slide. Same thing with Olivia Dean winning Best New Artist. Her album technically landed after the cutoff, but the singles dropped before, so that's what counted. But let's be real. The Grammys run on vibes more than spreadsheets. Olivia Dean has that undeniable aura right now. She feels like a rocket ship in motion, and in this moment, she felt like the best new artist. That momentum matters. And what made this even more interesting was the contrast with Somber. Because with him, it really felt like the album was rushed. The potential is clearly there, but timing and patience make all the difference. Somber dropped his album literally right before the cutoff, like a week out, and it was only 10 tracks. That was clearly a strategic move. The thinking was probably, okay, he needs an album out to even be considered, but we'll keep it tight and fast. Meanwhile, Olivia Dean did the complete opposite. She waited, took her time, and delivered a really cohesive, fully realized album after the cutoff. And in the end, the Grammys didn't care at all. Same story with Billie Eilish and Wildflower winning Song of the Year. That song was written so beautifully, so intentionally, that it honestly would have felt wild if it walked away with nothing. Sometimes the quality just overrides the calendar. I will say, though, there were a few surprises. I was genuinely shocked that APT didn't take home anything. That song is massive. It's clever, playful, and such a smart cultural moment. The wordplay alone, tying the game into apartment, is pop songwriting done right. It's catchy, it's cheeky, and it sticks in your head. Bruno Mars and Rosé together is such a strong pairing. I honestly would have loved to see that win Song of the Year or Record of the Year. But listen, Wildflower took it, and I'm not mad. You already know Billie is my girl. Record of the Year did surprise me a little, though. But then again, the Grammys love Kendrick Lamar. And to be fair, he always delivers at the highest level. Him winning Record of the Year 2 years in a row is honestly wild. That kind of back-to-back dominance does not happen by accident. I saw people pointing out that he's now officially the most Grammy-awarded rapper of all time. And yeah, that feels completely earned. At this point, Kendrick Lamar is legitimately in the conversation for greatest rapper ever, which is crazy to even say out loud. He's had an absolutely unreal 2-year run, not just commercially, but culturally too. Everything he touches sparks conversation, meaning, and impact. So honestly, I was happy with that win. That said, this category was stacked. There were so many incredible songs. For me, Abracadabra was the best performed song of the entire year, hands down. Lady Gaga isn't just performing anymore. She's building full-on cinematic worlds. A 3-story cage, Coachella, the VMAs, every single performance felt like a short film. That level of commitment is insane. The Subway would have been such a bold wildcard pick. Anxiety, too. Both of those would have made sense. And DTMF would have been incredible as well. But Bad Bunny already took Album of the Year. So I'm not mad about Record of the Year going elsewhere. That balance felt fair. Now let's talk about performances and some of the more interesting wins. Starting with Justin Bieber performing Naked. I actually think there was a lot of symbolism packed into that moment. Swag being his first album without Scooter Braun involved is a huge shift. That performance felt intentional, stripped back, and very telling. And yeah, there's definitely more to unpack there. That performance felt raw in a way we almost never see anymore. It was just Justin, stripped all the way down artistically. And honestly, that explains everything. The black and white visuals, the black album cover, the minimalism across the whole era. It all clicks when you think about it. Justin Bieber has been inside the machine since he was basically a kid. He spent his entire life being shaped, packaged, and directed by the industry. And it really feels like this is the first time he stepped fully outside of that system and said, "This is just me." That performance wasn't about spectacle. There was no band, no layers, no distractions, no costumes, no safety net, just him, his voice, and the song. And that was the whole point. It felt like him saying, "This is my most vulnerable version as an artist, and I'm standing in it." This album hits different because of that. It's raw, it's exposed, and yeah, it's his first album as a father too, which adds a whole other layer. There's something really poetic about that moment. People saw it and went straight to surface-level reactions, but there was a lot of intention baked into that performance. Now, for Best Pop Duo or Group Performance, I have a hot take. I genuinely think the original Defying Gravity hits harder than the version by Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo. You can disagree, that's fine. Maybe it's nostalgia talking, but that original version still clears for me. And honestly, Golden from K-pop Demon Hunters would have been such a cool win too. That track had energy, impact, and real cultural momentum. I wouldn't have been mad at all if it took the trophy. The fact that K-pop Demon Hunters became the most streamed movie in Netflix history is actually mind-blowing. This wasn't a sequel, not a remake, not part of some giant franchise. Nobody saw it coming, and suddenly it was everywhere. That's what makes it such a real, cultural phenomenon. It came out of nowhere and completely took over. For K-pop as a genre, this was a massive mainstream moment, especially with younger audiences. It felt fresh, exciting, and different. You can already tell every studio is scrambling behind the scenes, trying to figure out how to recreate that magic. How do we get our own version of that? That impact is going to be studied for years. Honestly, I would have loved to see it take the win. I'm not mad at Defying Gravity, because yes, I love Wicked, and yes, I love Ariana, we all know that. But if I'm being real, I think K-pop Demon Hunters would have been the bolder, more exciting choice in that moment. Now, Sinners winning Best Soundtrack over Wicked genuinely shocked me. But at the same time, I'm not upset about it at all. That soundtrack is one of the most beautiful, intentional pieces of work I've seen in a long time. The music isn't just background, it's woven directly into the storytelling. What makes it even more powerful is how deeply it connects to culture and history. The film uses music as a window into its time, showing how genres like country, jazz, and bluegrass were built from the work of Black artists, enslaved people, and freed slaves. Then watching how that music was later repackaged and commercialized adds so much weight to the story. It was bold, meaningful, and absolutely deserved that recognition. So much of that music was taken from those communities and never given the same level of credit or ownership. And seeing that truth acknowledged on such a big stage felt powerful. That's why Sinners winning mattered so much. It's a completely original film, not based on a book, not part of an existing IP, not backed by decades of history. It just showed up as itself and still stood tall. When you compare that to something like Wicked, which has massive institutional backing, Broadway history, and years of cultural dominance, the contrast is wild. And don't get me wrong, I love Wicked, we all know this. But seeing an original story like Sinners break through like that was beautiful. I genuinely hope Sinners picks up Oscar wins too. Honestly, I wanted it to take Best Picture. So fingers crossed, this feels like the beginning of something big. Now we have to talk about Album of the Year. Bad Bunny winning was so deserved it almost hurt. That album gives me chills every time. It's such a vivid window into Puerto Rican culture, into childhood memories, nostalgia, and the feeling of missing home as life moves faster and faster. What makes it even more special is how intentional he is. As his career explodes globally, he never lets go of where he comes from. He uses his platform to show people what it truly means to be Puerto Rican, with pride, honesty, and love. That representation matters. I also love how fearless he is with self-expression. The gender-fluid fashion, the confidence, the refusal to fit into a box. He's such a strong role model, especially right now. And with everything happening politically, especially with Donald Trump back in the conversation, this win felt even more meaningful. Seeing culture, identity, and authenticity Celebrated like that gave me real hope. Now, one of the biggest surprises of the night for me was Lady Gaga not taking home any of the Big Four awards. That genuinely shocked me. This album was incredible. She literally broke the record for the largest concert ever by a female artist with her Brazil performance. Her Coachella set was culture-shifting, generational, the kind of performance people will still reference years from now. The Abracadabra performances alone were insane. The visuals, the theatrical storytelling, the commitment, everything was on another level. And Die with a Smile has been one of the biggest songs of the past 2 years. Even though it dropped earlier, it's technically part of this album cycle, which made the snub feel even more surprising. That said, I can still admit this was truly Bad Bunny's year. Completely. And I'm so happy about it. This was his first ever Album of the Year win, and it was historic. The first Spanish-language album to ever take that award. That matters. That's culture moving forward in real time. And this is exactly why I keep saying the Grammys are a time capsule. They reflect what's happening in the world. The excitement around Latin culture, the desire to uplift these artists, it's not random. It's happening during a moment where those communities are under real pressure and scrutiny, and seeing them celebrated on the biggest stages feels powerful. Moments like this make me feel hopeful. Like more people are paying attention than we realize. And honestly, this feels like the start of a wild year for music. A real turning point. I cannot wait to see what comes next. That's my Grammys recap. Let me know if there was anything you wanted me to talk about that I didn't cover. I'll be jumping into the comments. Thank you so much for watching and rocking with me. This still doesn't feel real. And if you want more unfiltered music takes, culture breakdowns, and moments like this, make sure you subscribe to the Juicy Reel channel right now. You do not want to miss what's coming next. I'll see you very soon.
Bad Bunny gives a whole new meaning to traffic jam. The Puerto Rican singer and rapper rolled through parts of the Bronx and Washington Heights performing from atop a semi-truck.
That's all it took for Bad Bunny to flip his whole life upside down. 1 minute he's bagging groceries in Puerto Rico, the next he's running the entire music game.
It was the year of the bunny. Bad Bunny topping the charts in multiple categories.
Back in 2016, Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio was just a quiet supermarket worker dropping tracks on SoundCloud after shifts. No big label, no industry cosign, just raw hunger. Fast forward to 2019, and he's standing next to Drake and Cardi B like he'd been there all along. By 2022, his album Un Verano Sin Ti smashed streaming records worldwide and made Grammy history as the first all-Spanish project ever nominated for Album of the Year at the Grammy Awards. That's not luck, that's a takeover. But this story hits deeper than charts and trophies. This isn't just about one artist blowing up. This is about Bad Bunny reshaping the entire industry blueprint. He didn't just rise to the top, he changed what the top even means. Back in 2016, the rules were locked in tight. English pop and hip-hop ran the global charts. Latin music, boxed into side categories and niche radio lanes. Streaming was growing fast, sure, but label execs, radio programmers, and corporate power players still decided who got worldwide shine. Breaking those walls felt impossible, until he did it anyway. Bad Bunny, born Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio in San Juan, Puerto Rico, was never supposed to flip the whole system. He wasn't industry royalty. He wasn't groomed by executives. He was a regular college student studying audio-visual communications, clocking in at a supermarket just to survive. Music? That was just something he did after work, uploading reggaeton tracks to SoundCloud under the name Bad Bunny, and hoping somebody, somewhere, would press play. The name itself came from a childhood photo. him in an Easter bunny costume, rocking an angry face like he was already fed up with the world. And that attitude, it became the brand. What happened next proved something powerful. In the streaming era, real talent and raw authenticity could smash through every gate the old industry tried to keep locked. It all shifted in January 2016 with one upload. He dropped Dials on SoundCloud, gritty, unfiltered, fully in Spanish, exactly the type of record industry experts swore would never cross into the mainstream. No English hooks, no watered-down sound, just straight vibes. But the streets had other plans. Streams started climbing, shares went crazy, word spread fast across Latin America and throughout Latino communities worldwide. Suddenly, people weren't just listening, they were talking. Who was this new voice? Why did he sound so different? And how did he feel so real? The success of that track wasn't cooked up in some boardroom with $1 million promo budget. There was no flashy campaign, no corporate machine pushing buttons behind the scenes. This was pure street energy. The buzz spread through social media, group chats, reposts, and word of mouth like wildfire. That's when DJ Luyan, a Puerto Rican producer with a sharp ear, stumbled across the track and instantly saw the vision. He signed Bad Bunny to his label, Hear This Music, and by the end of 2016, they dropped the breakout single, Soy Peor. The record didn't just chart, it exploded. It eventually pulled in over 330 million views on YouTube and stamped Bad Bunny as a serious force in Latin music. This wasn't hype anymore. This was real momentum. But Soy Peor was only the first wave. What truly separated Bad Bunny wasn't just the sound, it was the mindset. While other artists softened their edges chasing mainstream approval, he went harder into who he really was. He rapped fully in Spanish. He embraced bold, gender-fluid fashion. He spoke openly about Puerto Rico and Latino identity without hesitation. No filter, no compromise. By 2017, the climb got even steeper. He teamed up with Karol G on Ahora Me Llama and Becky G on Mayores, which became his first entry on the Billboard Hot 100 and his first #1 hit in Spain. These collabs proved he could dominate globally without switching up who he was. Then came the real game changer. In 2018, Cardi B was building her debut album Invasion of Privacy and wanted a Latin-inspired anthem. She tapped J Balvin and Bad Bunny for I Like It, built around a sample of Pete Rodriguez's 1967 salsa classic. That link-up wasn't just a feature. It was a cultural detonation waiting to happen. I Like It didn't just climb the charts, it took over. In September 2018, the track hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and shook the entire industry. This wasn't just another catchy single. This was a cultural earthquake. For the first time in the streaming era, a predominantly Spanish-language song sat at the very top of American music. That moment sent a loud message. Latin music wasn't crossing over anymore, it had arrived. That explosion paved the way for his debut album X100 PRE, released on Christmas Eve 2018. 15 tracks. No compromises. Pure reggaeton energy mixed with emotion and sharp storytelling. The album peaked at #11 on the Billboard 200. Impressive for any newcomer, but groundbreaking for a Spanish-language debut. He wasn't adjusting to the system. He was bending it. But that was only the warm-up round. From 2019 to 2022, Bad Bunny launched into a whole different universe of dominance. His joint project Oasis with J Balvin ruled Latin charts in 2019. Then in 2020, he dropped YHLQMDLG, short for Yo hago lo que me da la gana, meaning, I do whatever I want. And he meant it. The album debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200, making him the first artist ever to top the chart with an all-Spanish project. History made, again. Later that same year, El Último Tour del Mundo gave him a second straight #1. That wasn't luck. That was domination. This wasn't a temporary wave. This was a reset of the entire game. And just when the industry thought it understood the scale of his rise, something even bigger was coming. Then 2022 hit, and everything changed again. Un verano sin ti, A Summer Without You, dropped with almost no warning. No big lead singles, barely any traditional promo. Zero attempts to water it down for English-speaking markets. Just 23 tracks of pure Bad Bunny energy, blending reggaeton with indie pop, dembow, and smooth Caribbean vibes. And that first week? Absolute chaos. The album smashed streaming records, breaking Drake's previous mark for the biggest debut in Spotify history. Over 180 million streams in just 3 days. By the end of week 1, it pulled 273 million streams, numbers that didn't even sound real, especially for a fully Spanish project. The so-called rules of the music business? Gone. But the wild part? That was only the start. The album sat at #1 on the Billboard 200 for 13 straight weeks, longer than any other album that year. It became the first Spanish-language project ever to top the year-end Billboard 200 chart, and on Spotify, it crushed records again, eventually passing 15 billion streams and still climbing. That's not just success, that's dominance on a historic level, and beyond the numbers, the culture shifted. Tracks like Titi Me Preguntó, Moscow Mule, and Mi Porto Bonito weren't just Latino hits. They became global anthems. Clubs, TikTok, festivals, everywhere you looked, those songs were playing. He proved something loud and clear. Language was never the barrier. Quality was king. And Bad Bunny had just reset the entire global pop conversation. Bad Bunny's rise didn't just shake playlists, it forced the entire music industry to rethink what mainstream even means. The old belief that English had to dominate global pop? That narrative started crumbling fast. Then came the moment that locked his name into history forever. On November 15, 2022, the Grammy Awards nominations were announced, and Bad Bunny made history. Un Verano Sin Ti became the first fully Spanish-language album ever nominated for Album of the Year, the Grammy's most elite category. That's the top of the top. Pause and think about that. In over 65 years of Grammy history, with thousands of albums nominated across every genre imaginable, not one Spanish-language project had ever reached that level. Not once. Bad Bunny didn't just squeeze through the door, he blasted it wide open. Even though Harry Styles ultimately took home the trophy, the nomination itself meant something bigger than gold hardware. It was official confirmation that the culture had shifted. This wasn't charity. This wasn't a trend. This was recognition that the global sound had changed. And Bad Bunny led that charge. And the milestones didn't stop there. He also became the first Latin artist ever named Billboard's Artist of the Year. That title isn't handed out lightly. It proved the takeover wasn't temporary hype. It was a permanent reset of the entire music landscape. He didn't just dominate charts, he rewrote global streaming history. Bad Bunny became the first non-English language artist ever to be named the most streamed artist worldwide on Spotify. 3 years in a row. That's not a moment. That's a reign. Then came the touring numbers, and they were insane. His world's hottest tour pulled in over $435 million, making it the highest-grossing tour ever by a Latin artist. Stadiums packed, tickets gone in minutes, entire cities moving to his rhythm. That's not hype, that's power on a global scale. And here's the part that hits hardest. He did all of this without switching up who he is. Bad Bunny stayed unapologetically Puerto Rican the entire way. His visuals celebrated Caribbean culture. His lyrics tackled real topics like gentrification back home. His fashion pushed boundaries and challenged old-school ideas about masculinity. He didn't blend in to win. He stood out louder. That realness, that was the secret weapon. Even in business, he stayed solid. While many artists chase crossover fame by recording in English or leaning heavily on American pop features, he kept building with his own circle. He consistently collaborated with Latin artists like Rauw Alejandro, Jaco, and Bomba Estéreo. That loyalty to his culture wasn't a limitation. It was the blueprint. That movement showcased just how deep and diverse Latin music really is. It wasn't just about one superstar. It was about shining a spotlight on rising talent and proving the culture had layers. Different sounds, different regions, different vibes, all getting global attention at the same time. And the ripple effect? Massive. Bad Bunny's rise didn't just elevate his own career, it cracked open doors for a whole wave of Latin artists. Suddenly, Spanish-language music wasn't extra content. It was front and center. Streaming platforms started pushing Latin playlists harder. Labels began investing real budgets into non-English projects. The system had to adjust because the numbers were too loud to ignore. Even radio stations began spinning more Spanish tracks. Award shows expanded categories to reflect Latin music's growing dominance. The infrastructure of the industry shifted in real time. All because one artist proved the ceiling wasn't real. By 2023 and rolling into 2024, the shift was undeniable. Latin music became one of the fastest-growing genres in the United States. Streaming for Spanish-language content surged at record speed. New artists followed the same blueprint. Stay authentic, stay proud, stay rooted. No need to blend in to win. And the wild part? His influence didn't stop at music. It spilled into culture, fashion, and identity on a global scale. His presence started reaching places nobody expected. When Bad Bunny stepped into WWE events, ratings jumped and social media went wild. He wasn't just doing cameo appearances, he was performing, training, and showing up like he belonged there. That crossover pulled in massive new audiences and proved his pull went way beyond music. His fashion, trendsetting worldwide. Skirts, bold colors, painted nails. He flipped old rules about masculinity and made self-expression look powerful. At the same time, his political activism kept Puerto Rico in global conversations. He used his platform to highlight issues affecting the island, pushing real topics into mainstream headlines. That's bigger than entertainment. That's cultural leadership. Then January 2025 hit, and he did it again. His new project shot straight to #1 and helped him become the first Latin artist ever to reach 100 entries on the Billboard Hot 100. That milestone proved 2022 wasn't some lucky peak. It was the new standard. When you step back and look at this 3-year run, it almost sounds unreal. He took an industry built around English dominance and tight gatekeeping and flipped the whole structure. Talent, authenticity, cultural pride, that was the formula. He didn't just win the game, he changed what winning even looks like. He proved something the industry tried to deny for years. You don't have to erase who you are to win worldwide. You don't have to switch languages, soften your culture, or water down your roots just to be accepted. And the biggest impact? He kicked open a door that can never be shut again. Now when we see Latin artists running global charts, when Spanish-language tracks dominate streaming platforms, when major festivals proudly headline reggaeton acts, we're looking at the world Bad Bunny helped build. This shift didn't happen by accident. It happened because one artist refused to bend. The grocery store worker from Puerto Rico didn't just level up. He redesigned the blueprint. He turned authenticity into a global currency. He showed that cultural pride isn't a limitation, it's leverage. In this new era, connection beats conformity. Real stories beat forced crossover moves. The language barrier myth, dead and buried. And what makes it even crazier? This transformation unfolded in just 3 years. That's not gradual evolution. That's a full industry reset. Bad Bunny didn't just have a successful run. He sparked a revolution in how music moves, how culture travels, and how power shifts. If this deep dive into his industry takeover had you thinking differently, make sure you subscribe to Juicy Reel for more breakdowns like this. We unpack the strategies, the risks, and the turning points that reshape the game. Because once you understand how change happens, you start spotting the next wave before everyone else does.
Puerto Rico, I want to dedicate this award to all the people that had to leave their homeland, their country to follow their dreams. Before I say thanks to God, I'm going to say eyes out. We're not savage, we're not animals, we're not aliens, we are humans and we are Americans.
The story doesn't start under the bright lights of the Super Bowl. It kicks off months earlier, when Bad Bunny made a move that confused a lot of industry insiders. Instead of chasing the UK with safe, radio-friendly hits, he dropped an album that felt personal, raw, and unapologetically Puerto Rican. In late 2024, he released Davy Tarara Moss Photos, a project soaked in memory, culture, and identity.
Also, I want to say to the people, I know it's tough to know, not to hate on these days. And I was thinking, sometimes we get contaminados. I don't know how to say that in English. The hate get more powerful with more hate. The only thing that is more powerful than hate is love. Please, we need to be different. If we fight, we have to do it with love. If we don't hate them, we love our people, we love our family, and that's the way to do it, with love. Don't forget that, please. Thank you.
The title translates to, I should have taken more photos, and that alone tells you this wasn't built for charts. It was built from the heart. No English hooks slipped in to make it easier for global playlists. No watered-down verses. The entire record stayed in Spanish, intentional and bold, like he was daring the market to either step up or step aside. When the album landed on the UK Albums Chart, it debuted at number 13. Respectable? Yes. Explosive? Not quite. It wasn't some overnight takeover. It felt more like the industry nodding quietly, saying, we see what you're doing. But here's the twist. Bad Bunny was already playing in a different league. He had dominated global streaming platforms for years, smashing records across continents.
Bad Bunny used the sky blue Puerto Rico flag at the Super Bowl. You might be used to seeing this flag with navy blue instead, but what does each flag mean? Time for a little Puerto Rican history. This was the first flag of Puerto Rico, the revolutionary flag of Lares. It was knitted by Mariana Bracetti Cuevas during the first uprising of Lares in 1868. It was flown there, the first revolt against Spanish colonizers. After that, pro-independence Puerto Ricans in New York City in the 1890s created this flag. And that flag would become the official flag with sky blue, white, and red. After Spain, the United States colonized Puerto Rico in 1898. Between then and the establishment of Puerto Rico as a Commonwealth in 1952, it was a felony to display the Puerto Rican flag in public. There was even a gag law which made displaying a Puerto Rican light blue or lattice flag punishable by up to 10 years in prison. In 1952, the color of the Puerto Rican flag changed from sky blue to navy blue, resembling the flag of the United States. And later, the gag law was deemed unconstitutional. For many, the light blue flag is a symbol of freedom, independence, and also a historical learning moment.
The UK, though, has always moved at its own pace, cautious and calculated. The UK market rewards what it already knows. It leans into comfort. It sticks with tradition. And even though Latin music had been gaining ground for years, a fully Spanish-language album hovering near the top still felt like a stretch to many industry watchers. So number 13 became this invisible ceiling. Week after week, the album stayed right there. No dramatic spike, no sudden UK viral wave, no explosive headline moment, just steady numbers and quiet consistency. It almost felt like the narrative had already been decided: global superstar, but only moderate traction in Britain. Clean, predictable, contained. And that part matters more than people realize. Chart takeovers rarely come out of nowhere. They build pressure behind the scenes. By early February 2026, the project looked locked into its lane. It wasn't rising, it wasn't falling, it was stable, almost frozen in place.
At number 64 jersey, that was not a random number. It was a direct shot at the government for initially reporting only 64 deaths from Hurricane Maria, hiding the thousands who actually died. That little house you saw on stage, it was a symbol of resistance against the rich tourists and the developers, gentrifying the island and pushing the local families out of their homes. His shout-out to Toñita in Nueva York was a deep cut. It was a nod to the legendary owner of a beloved cultural hub for the Puerto Rican community in New York City. And the kid holding his Grammy was a gut punch about the children separated from their families at the border by harsh ICE policies. Those figures on the power lines directly reference the chronic blackouts from his protest song El Apagón, which slams the privatization of the island's power grid. Now, bringing out Ricky Martin wasn't just a fun cameo. It was a powerful reclaiming of Puerto Rican pop history on the biggest stage in America. And the Puerto Rican flag he used had a light blue triangle. That is not the official one. It's the specific flag of the pro-independence and anti-colonial movement. And finally, his last line, he reframed America to mean the entire continent, the North, the Central, and the South, a defiant message of unity for all of us.
Then February 8th, 2026 hit Super Bowl Sunday, and suddenly the rules started bending. Super Bowl 60 pulled in over 100 million viewers in the United States alone, one of the biggest TV audiences of the year. That halftime stage has always belonged to mainstream English-language pop giants. That's the tradition. That's the formula. But on February 8th, 2026, Bad Bunny stepped onto that stage and flipped the script in real time. He performed entirely in Spanish, not halfway, not softened for wider appeal, not some bilingual compromise to make executives comfortable. The setlist stayed loyal to the catalog that built him, track by track, word by word. On the biggest broadcast stage in American television, that decision carried weight, and everybody felt it. The Super Bowl halftime show has hosted global icons for decades, from polished pop royalty to stadium rock giants. Traditionally, it spotlights artists who slide easily into American mainstream culture. But Bad Bunny didn't reshape himself to fit that mold. He didn't translate his identity. He brought his world with him and made the world watch. The impact was instant. Social media lit up within minutes. Clips flooded timelines. Streaming numbers jumped within hours. Major playlists adjusted fast. Search traffic exploded like people were racing to catch up. The energy wasn't subtle. It was loud and measurable, but the most fascinating reaction didn't unfold in the United States. It happened across the Atlantic. While American viewers argued about stage design and surprise guests, something concrete was shifting inside the UK charts. And this wasn't a gentle rise. It wasn't the slow burn of radio rotation. This was pressure finally breaking through. This wasn't the usual small boost artists get after a big TV moment. It wasn't a polite spike and fade. It was a full-on surge, the kind that makes chart analysts pause, refresh the data, and check twice before going live with the numbers. Within days of the broadcast, UK streams for Davy Tarara Moss Photos shot up fast. And it wasn't just one catchy single pulling the weight. Multiple tracks from the album started climbing at the same time. The whole project moved as a unit. That's not random hype, that's demand kicking the door open. This wasn't momentum slowly building in the background. It was momentum arriving all at once. And when the official UK chart numbers dropped, the shift was impossible to downplay. The week after the Super Bowl, the UK albums chart delivered the shocker. Davy Tarara Moss Photos jumped from number 13 straight to number 2. An 11-place leap in a single week is rare territory. Albums don't just vault like that without a serious external trigger. This wasn't gradual growth, it was a sharp market correction. Only Olivia Dean's The Art of Loving held it from the number 1 spot, and even that gap was tight. Meanwhile, the UK singles chart echoed the same energy. DTMF rocketed up 39 places to land at number 4, marking Bad Bunny's highest UK singles position ever. OL pushed into the top 20, peaking around number 15, while Bail Inolvidable followed closely, hovering near number 20. The takeover wasn't subtle, it was everywhere. This wasn't one random viral clip dragging the numbers up. It was the whole album moving as one. When multiple tracks rise at the same time, that signals something deeper than a catchy hook on repeat. That means new listeners aren't just tasting a chorus, they're diving headfirst into the catalog. That's replay value. That's real conversion. That's people staying. For years, Bad Bunny had ruled global streaming platforms. He topped international year-end lists. He shattered records across territories. But in the UK, there always seemed to be a glass ceiling. That number 13 debut showed respect, sure, but it also hinted at limits. Strong recognition, limited crossover. And then in one single week, that ceiling cracked wide open. The Super Bowl didn't introduce him to the world. The world already knew. What it did was amplify him inside a market that had kept him slightly at arm's length. And that moment turned into his first solo UK Top 10 album, plus one of his highest charting singles ever in the territory. That's not small progress. That's a shift. The charts didn't slowly adjust, they snapped. And when numbers move that fast, the bigger question isn't about hype, it's about structure. What actually changed? The audience or the rules of the game? Because the language didn't change. Bad Bunny has made Spanish language music his entire career. He didn't flip to English. He didn't rebrand. He didn't dilute who he was. The album that jumped to number 2 was the exact same album that debuted at 13. The only difference? Visibility. That Super Bowl stage in February 2026 turned the volume all the way up. He never treated Spanish like it was niche. He never packaged it as regional. He presented it as global by default, and that difference hits hard. For decades, artists trying to break into English-speaking markets were expected to adjust everything, translate the lyrics, tweak the sound, rework the image, reposition the brand. He didn't bend. He didn't filter himself down. And the UK reaction proved something powerful. When confidence shows up instead of compromise, audiences feel it. That post-Super Bowl spike wasn't sympathy. It wasn't hype for hype's sake. It was curiosity turning into real streams. People didn't just watch the performance and move on. They went searching. They pressed play. And they stayed. That's a big difference. Now look at the industry mechanics. Charts measure consumption, but exposure fuels that consumption. Airplay, playlist slots, headlines, algorithm boosts. These shape momentum behind the scenes. And the Super Bowl halftime show? That's one of the only stages big enough to flip those switches overnight. But none of this happened in a vacuum. The groundwork was already solid. Years of consistent releases, massive global tours, record-breaking streaming numbers. The UK surge didn't build a fan base from zero. It activated one that had been hovering just below the surface. That 11-place album jump and 39-place singles climb weren't random. They were pressure finally released. These single surges weren't random spikes. They were pressure finally releasing. And when that pressure broke through, it challenged one long-standing assumption, that English is the required gateway to full mainstream validation. The charts didn't just log a victory, they documented a structural shift in real time. Bad Bunny was 31 when this happened. He wasn't some new act scrambling for attention. He wasn't an underdog begging to be seen. He was already one of the most streamed artists on the planet before the UK numbers ever moved. That's what makes this moment heavy. For years, global streaming data screamed dominance. Billions of plays, sold-out stadium tours, major awards. But global stats and local validation are two different games. The UK has always carried a reputation as a tastemaker territory, selective, measured, slow to fully embrace non-English catalogs. That number 13 debut felt like confirmation of that caution. Respect, but restraint. Then the leap to number 2 flipped the tone entirely. The Super Bowl performance didn't reinvent his career. It sharpened the lens. It made the narrative impossible to ignore. He reached the biggest televised stage in America without switching languages, without trimming his identity, and still expanded into a market that once felt hesitant. That's not just growth. That's proof that the rules are changing. And once that barrier cracked, the ripple effect went deeper than just one chart week. Industry executives started paying closer attention. Program directors who once hesitated around full Spanish records suddenly had fresh data in front of them. Streaming platforms adjusted recommendations faster. Media coverage shifted tone from, "Can he cross over?" to, "He already has." That language change matters more than people think. Because this wasn't about novelty, it wasn't about a one-night spectacle, it was about normalization. When millions of viewers watched a Super Bowl halftime show performed entirely in Spanish and didn't tune out, it quietly rewired expectations. The idea that English is the default setting for global success took a hit. And here's the key part. Nothing about the music changed. The production style stayed consistent. The lyrics stayed authentic. The cultural references remained rooted in Puerto Rico. The only variable that shifted was scale. Visibility expanded and the market adjusted around it. That's why this moment carries weight beyond one artist. It signaled that mainstream validation doesn't have to come after translation. It can come through amplification. The UK charts didn't just reward a performance, they responded to confidence presented at maximum volume. And when markets respond like that, it forces the entire industry to rethink what global really means moving forward. What happened next wasn't loud, but it was telling. In the weeks that followed, the numbers didn't crash back down. That's the part people overlook. Flashy viral moments fade fast. But this held. The album maintained strong positioning. Tracks continued pulling streams. That kind of stability proves the spike wasn't hype. It was integration. UK listeners didn't just visit the catalog out of curiosity. They added songs to playlists. They replayed them. They shared them. That's when a market shifts from observing to participating. And once participation kicks in, the ceiling doesn't reset to where it used to be. There's also a psychological layer here. When audiences see an artist command the biggest stage in American entertainment without compromising language or identity, it reframes perception. It removes the idea of foreign and replaces it with formidable. That shift is subtle, but powerful. For years, the conversation around non-English music in certain Western markets revolved around barriers. accessibility, translation, adaptation. This moment flipped that narrative. It suggested that scale and confidence can override hesitation. And when one major territory recalibrates, others watch closely. Labels take notes, festival bookers reassess lineups, radio programmers reconsider risk. The ripple doesn't stop at one chart week. It reshapes strategy, because once a market proves it can respond to authenticity at full volume, it becomes harder to argue that compromise was ever necessary in the first place. Exposure doesn't magically create taste, but it can accelerate acceptance. And audiences are way more flexible than old industry models like to admit. The UK didn't discover Bad Bunny overnight. The foundation was already there. What changed was scale. The response finally matched the global reality. What happened after February 8, 2026, wasn't just a random chart blip. It was a case study in cultural confidence colliding with mainstream infrastructure and winning. It showed that you don't have to dilute identity to expand markets. Sometimes you just need the volume turned up high enough for everyone to hear it. Now the real question, was this a one-time Super Bowl surge, or the moment the UK finally aligned with a global shift already in motion? Drop your take below and tap into the next video for our deeper breakdown of another public figure who reshaped the industry without reshaping themselves.
Spotify says the Puerto Rican superstar was the most streamed artist of 2025, the first to do it 4 times. And his album, Debí Tirar Más Fotos, it's the #1 global album. Bottom line, his fans spoke loud and listened louder.
Last weekend, São Paulo didn't just host a show. It exploded. The city felt different from the moment the sun came up, like something massive was about to go down. You could feel it in the air, that electric tension, that restless buzz that makes people check their phones every 5 minutes. Streets were jammed, timelines were flooded, and thousands kept moving in one direction like the whole city was being pulled by a magnet.
Titi me preguntó si tengo muchas novias. Good job.
And the reason? Bad Bunny was finally stepping onto Brazilian soil for the first time. This wasn't just another tour stop. This felt historic.
But the numbers say that his listeners might be getting ready for his upcoming performance.
It wasn't only die-hard fans losing their minds. Taxi drivers were talking about it. Hotel lobbies were packed. Restaurants were booked out. Even street vendors were moving like it was a national holiday. The energy spilled far beyond the venue, turning the entire city into one giant pre-party. São Paulo wasn't just hosting a concert, it was embracing a cultural moment it had been starving for. Bad Bunny, the Puerto Rican superstar who flipped the music industry on its head and never once toned himself down, stepped onto that stage for 2 back-to-back nights that literally shook São Paulo to its core. This wasn't just loudspeakers and flashing lights. The ground felt like it was moving. The crowd felt unstoppable. And the message was clear. This was bigger than music. This wasn't just another tour date stamped on a schedule. This was his first ever performance in Brazil, a moment years in the making. Spotify's 2025 Global Top Artist arrived in a country that had been streaming him nonstop, memorizing lyrics in Spanish just to feel closer to his world. Fans didn't just show up knowing a few hooks, they knew every word. And he delivered like he owed them something. But here's where it gets wild. Spotify didn't treat this like a normal concert weekend. They didn't settle for a couple posts and a playlist refresh. No, they had a bigger play in motion. What they built in that city before the first beat even dropped is what still has people talking today. And once you see it, you'll understand why. Days later, Spotify pulled the curtain back on something called Puerto Rico Mundo, which basically means from Puerto Rico to the world. And that name alone, it wasn't subtle. It was a statement. This wasn't some lazy pop-up with posters on the wall and a QR code slapped on the exit. This was a full-blown universe, built piece by piece, room by room, with serious intention behind every detail. They didn't just decorate a space in São Paulo, they transported people. Step inside, and you weren't in Brazil anymore. You were dropped straight into the emotional core of Bad Bunny's 2025 album, Debí Tirar Más Fotos. That project was already one of the most talked about releases of the year, raw, personal, soaked in Puerto Rican identity, nostalgia, pride, and storytelling that hits you right in the chest. The kind of music that makes you pause because it feels too real. And Spotify didn't let it live only in headphones. They turned it physical. You could walk through it, hear it echo off the walls, see the colors, feel the textures. Every corner carried emotion. Fans, content creators, and media were invited inside, not just to look around, but to experience it. And experience is the right word, because this wasn't passive. It felt like stepping inside the album itself. This wasn't a tour, it wasn't some guide walking you from point A to point B with a rehearsed speech. It was pure exploration. Every door you pushed open felt like unlocking a secret. Every room carried its own mood, its own sound, its own emotion. You weren't being told what to think, you were discovering it for yourself. The design team did not play around. No shortcuts, no filler. Every corner had intention behind it. Every texture, every sound layer, every visual cue tied back to a specific moment in the album's emotional and sonic journey. It felt mapped out with precision, like someone obsessed over getting it exactly right. The second you stepped inside, the outside world faded. São Paulo? Gone. Notifications? Forgotten? Deadlines? Didn't matter. All that existed was the universe Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio, the man the world knows as Bad Bunny, had poured his heart into. And now that world wasn't just streaming in your headphones, it was alive around you. People who walked through it said they felt something unexpected. Not just nice visuals, not just cool lighting. They said it hit deeper. Because the album itself is honest. Debí Tirar Más Fotos wasn't built to chase trends or collect trophies. It was built from something real, and you could feel that in every step. This album isn't just a playlist, it's a love letter. A complicated one, a proud one, sometimes even a painful one. A love letter to Puerto Rico, to the streets that shaped him, the culture that molded him, and the people still living that reality while the rest of the world watches from a distance. And when you stepped into the world Spotify created, that love letter stopped being abstract. It became physical, three-dimensional, surrounding you from every angle. You didn't just see it, you felt the weight of it. And the way the crowd reacted said everything. These were Brazilian fans, thousands of miles from Puerto Rico, singing in Spanish about an island many of them have never seen in person. And still, every single one connected. No hesitation, no confusion. They understood the emotion behind it. That's what real music does. Because real culture doesn't carry a passport. It doesn't ask for translation approval. When something comes from a genuine place, it moves. It crosses oceans, borders, languages, and lands straight in your chest like it belongs there. It hits the same whether you grew up in San Juan or São Paulo. That's the level Bad Bunny has built over the years. Something rooted but global at the same time. And that weekend in São Paulo? It wasn't hype. It was proof, displayed on one of the biggest stages possible. What made it even more electric? The people. This didn't feel like some cold corporate activation with security lines and polite applause. It felt alive. Strangers were hugging like old friends. Groups were taking photos in front of the installations and instantly turning their screens to show each other like, "Look at this." The energy wasn't forced. It was organic. Creators who had built entire platforms around their love for Bad Bunny's music were walking into rooms themed after songs that shaped their lives. And some of them couldn't hold it together. You could see it in their faces. This wasn't content farming. This was personal. These tracks weren't just background noise to them. They were memories. Breakups, wins, late-night drives, real life. There's something powerful about stepping inside art you've only known through headphones. When you can stand in it, when visuals wrap around you, when sound hits from every direction, something shifts inside you. Something cracks open that you didn't expect. And here's where it gets even more interesting. São Paulo wasn't the starting point. Spotify had already launched De Puerto Rico Mundo in Mexico and Colombia before Brazil ever saw it. Different countries, different histories, different connections to Latin music. And yet, the reaction stayed the same every time. That kind of consistency? That's not marketing luck. That's cultural impact. People didn't just enjoy it. They lost their minds. Some cried openly. Some walked out quiet and overwhelmed. Others came back the next day and dragged their friends with them like, "You have to see this for yourself." That kind of reaction doesn't happen by accident. And think about this. 3 different countries across Latin America. 3 different crowds. Same emotional response every time. That says something loud and clear. Bad Bunny isn't just charting hits right now. He's leading a cultural moment. He's more than a streaming giant. He's a cultural anchor. Someone who makes people thousands of miles away from Puerto Rico feel seen, understood, and part of something bigger than their daily routine. That's rare. And Spotify recognized it. They didn't just chase clout. They didn't slap his face on a banner and call it a day. They built something that respected the weight of the album. There's a big difference between using an artist's fame and honoring their art. And people feel that instantly. You can always sense when a brand just wants attention versus when it wants to serve the music and the audience. This experience did both. Every room matched a theme. Every visual matched the emotion of the track it represented. Nothing felt random. Nothing felt rushed. It was intentional from start to finish. All of that sent one clear message: respect. Respect for the music. Respect for the fans. Respect for Puerto Rican culture and what it means to the people who live it every day. And even to those who love it from thousands of miles away. Nothing about it felt careless. Nothing felt rushed. It felt intentional. So by the time the actual concerts kicked off, the crowd was already on another level. The energy was different, charged, elevated, almost explosive. Most shows try to build momentum from 0. This one started at 100. That immersive world had done something stage lights and a killer set list alone can't do. It built context. It deepened the connection before the first step onto the stage. Fans weren't just excited, they were emotionally invested. So when Bad Bunny finally appeared and that first beat hit, it wasn't just the start of a concert, it felt like a release, a culmination of everything that had been building all weekend. Every emotion, every memory, every lyric they had been holding inside came pouring out at once. 2 nights. That's all it took for São Paulo to lock those moments into memory for years. These weren't just events on a calendar. They were lived experiences. And when people walked out, they weren't done. They were still buzzing, still floating, not quite ready to return to normal life just yet. And here's the part nobody can ignore. This wasn't just a win for one artist or one weekend. It was a blueprint. A statement about where global music culture is heading right now. For years, the industry tried to act like certain markets were secondary, like English had to be the center, like crossover meant dilution. That narrative is cracking. What happened in Sao Paulo proved something loud. You don't have to shrink your identity to go worldwide. You don't have to translate your soul to be understood. Bad Bunny didn't adjust his language. He didn't soften the themes. He didn't package his culture to make it easier to consume. He brought it exactly as it is, raw, proud, specific. And the world met him there. Spotify saw it too. They didn't try to repaint the story. They amplified it. They invested in the culture itself, not just the numbers behind it. And that's why it hit different. This weekend wasn't just about streams going up or clips going viral. It was proof that authenticity scales, that when something is real enough, detailed enough, rooted enough, it travels farther than any algorithm push ever could. And if this is the direction global music is moving, then what happened in Sao Paulo might not just be a highlight. It might be the shift everyone looks back on and says, that's when things changed. And let's talk numbers for a second, because emotion is powerful, but impact shows up in data too. Streams spiked again. Social clips flooded timelines. Local businesses reported record traffic. Hotels were packed. Ride shares were slammed. The ripple effect was real. This wasn't just a concert boosting playlist stats. It was a cultural wave hitting an entire city. When music can move people emotionally and economically at the same time, that's influence on another level. And here's what makes it even louder. And this wasn't a nostalgia act. This wasn't a farewell tour. This was an artist still in his prime, still evolving, still experimenting. That matters, because it shows this isn't the peak. It's momentum. The industry watches moments like this closely. Promoters, labels, platforms, they all take notes. When you see thousands of fans singing in another language without hesitation, when you see immersive art installations drawing repeat visits, when you see cross-border loyalty like that, you adjust your strategy. What happened in Sao Paulo wasn't random hype. It was alignment, culture, timing, authenticity, execution, all clicking at once. And if this is what one weekend can generate, imagine what the next move looks like. Because when an artist builds this kind of foundation, the next chapter doesn't get smaller. It gets louder. That's how you know it worked on every level. The music hit, the production hit, the immersive world hit, the cultural moment hit. And Bad Bunny? He stayed exactly who he's always been. This is an artist who has never watered himself down for broader appeal, never reshaped his identity to fit someone else's comfort zone. He shows up as himself every time and basically tells the world to catch up. And in Sao Paulo, he didn't deliver what was safe. He didn't deliver what was expected. He delivered what was real. That's why that weekend mattered way beyond headlines, beyond streaming spikes, beyond viral clips. It showed what happens when an artist stands fully in their truth, no edits, no filters, and trusts the audience to meet them there. And it also showed what happens when a platform actually respects that truth enough to build something worthy around it. Spotify didn't shrink the story. They amplified it. They created space for it to breathe. And the audience? They were ready, hungry, waiting for something that actually meant something. Puerto Rico Mundo wasn't just branding printed on a banner in a hallway. It was a declaration, a statement that the music, the culture, the pride, and the identity carried from that island are not small. They are not niche. They are not side notes in global music. They are shaping forces. For one unforgettable weekend in Sao Paulo, the world didn't just hear that truth. It felt it with every sense. Now I want to hear from you. Did this moment prove that global music has officially shifted? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more deep dives like this, make sure you subscribe to Juicy Reel and turn on notifications. Because we're just getting started. That's how you know it hit on every single level. The music connected, the production elevated it, the immersive world amplified it, the cultural moment locked it in. And Bad Bunny? He stayed solid. No compromises, no polishing himself down to fit a bigger market. He has never reshaped who he is just to make things more comfortable for a wider audience. He shows up as himself every time and lets the world decide if it can keep up. And in Sao Paulo, he didn't give people what felt predictable. He didn't choose the safe route. He gave them what was real. That's why this weekend mattered beyond flashy headlines and streaming spikes. It proved what happens when an artist commits fully to their truth and refuses to dilute it. It also showed what happens when a platform takes that truth seriously and builds something worthy around it. Not a gimmick, not a shallow promo run, something with weight. And the audience? They were ready, hungry, waiting for something that actually meant something deeper than just another night out. Puerto Rico Mundo wasn't just a catchy phrase hanging on a banner. It was a declaration. A reminder that the music, the culture, the pride, and the identity carried from that island are not small stories. They are not background noise. They are global forces shaping conversations far beyond borders. For one unforgettable weekend in Sao Paulo, the world didn't just hear that message, it felt it. Now I want your take. Was this a turning point for global music culture? Drop your thoughts in the comments right now. And if you want more breakdowns that go beyond surface headlines, subscribe to Juicy Reel and turn on notifications, because we're only getting louder from here. What happened in Sao Paulo wasn't random hype. It was alignment, identity, culture, vision, platform, audience, all locking in at the same time. That's rare. Bad Bunny didn't bend to the world. The world leaned toward him. And that's power. Not manufactured fame, not algorithm luck. Cultural gravity. When an artist can carry their language, their roots, their pride, and still pack arenas thousands of miles away, that's not a phase. That's legacy in motion. And if this is where global music stands right now, then the old rules are done. The gatekeeping is fading. The idea that you have to translate yourself to win worldwide? Dead. São Paulo felt it. Mexico felt it. Colombia felt it. And trust me, this isn't the last stop. Now it's your turn. Was this just a massive concert weekend? Or was it a cultural reset? Drop your take in the comments. And if you want more deep, unfiltered breakdowns like this, hit subscribe to Juicy Reel right now and turn on notifications. We don't just cover headlines here, we decode the moment.
Really wrong, like that Kid Rock concert.
Oh my God! Help! He's having a heart attack! Is anyone here a doctor?
No fucking way someone's a doctor here.
Bad Bunny just delivered one of the most politically explosive Super Bowl halftime shows we've ever seen. It wasn't just music, it was a statement. For the first time in history, the entire halftime show was performed fully in Spanish. And it didn't just make noise, it shattered records and became the most viewed halftime performance of all time. That alone had people talking, but the political tension around it made everything even louder.
You always have to be proud about who you are and being yourself.
For years, Bad Bunny has openly criticized ICE and the Trump administration, and that history made this moment feel loaded. Some conservative voices were so upset that they even pushed an alternate all-American halftime show idea featuring Kid Rock as a way to counter the NFL's choice.
God bless America!
They suck and we'll win.
That's how heated this got. But here's where it gets wild. Bad Bunny didn't just perform hits. He packed the stage with subtle symbolism and layered messages that many believe were aimed straight at political power. Every detail felt intentional. Every lyric carried weight. This wasn't random entertainment, it felt strategic. To really understand why this performance sparked so much debate, we need to understand who Bad Bunny is and why his voice carries power. He's been compared to Drake, with some even arguing he's surpassed him globally. And he's proudly from Puerto Rico, which matters. Puerto Rico has been a U.S. territory since 1898, a complicated political reality that adds serious weight to everything he represents on that stage. This is where the real tension kicks in. When Super Bowl officials announced that Bad Bunny would headline the 2026 halftime show, the reaction was instant and intense. In September 2025, the news dropped. A Puerto Rican artist who performs almost entirely in Spanish would take center stage at the biggest American sporting event of the year. That alone had people debating nonstop. Now, looking at his global numbers and sold-out stadiums, the choice makes total sense. He's one of the biggest artists on the planet. And let's be honest, music doesn't need translation to hit hard. The US already proved that with Despacito and Gangnam Style blowing up everywhere. You don't have to understand every word to feel the energy. During the announcement, Bad Bunny said, "What I'm feeling goes beyond myself. It's for those who came before me and ran countless yards so I could come in and score a touchdown. This is for my people, my culture, and our history." That line sounded powerful at the time, but looking back, it almost feels like a warning shot. Here's where it gets political. Bad Bunny has openly criticized the Trump administration in the past, and he hasn't been shy about where he stands. When he later announced his tour dates, fans noticed something major. There were no planned stops in the continental United States. In interviews, he explained the decision came from concerns that some of his fans could feel unsafe amid discussions around mass deportation policies. After the Super Bowl news went public, he hinted at the shift on Twitter, writing, "I've been thinking about it these days, and after discussing it with my team, I think I'll just do one date in the United States." That message hit like a bombshell and turned a halftime show into a full-blown political conversation. Bad Bunny hasn't exactly stayed quiet about the United States either. Back in 2017, after Hurricane Maria tore through Puerto Rico, he openly criticized what he saw as a slow and inadequate humanitarian response. While families were struggling without power and basic supplies, he used his platform to call attention to it. At a hurricane relief benefit concert, he even wore a shirt aimed at then-President Donald Trump that read, "Presidente, are you a Twitter user or a president?" That moment spread fast and showed he wasn't afraid to speak up. But his activism didn't stop at federal politics. In 2019, Bad Bunny hit the streets alongside artists like Ricky Martin and hundreds of thousands of Puerto Ricans, demanding accountability from their own government. Over 500,000 people protested corruption and called for the governor's resignation. That wasn't just symbolic, it was historic. In 2022, one of his music videos spotlighted issues like unreliable utilities, gentrification in San Juan, and beach privatization. These themes connect to larger conversations about identity, control, and colonial history, topics he frequently weaves into both his lyrics and interviews. And yes, some of those same themes showed up again during his halftime performance. Fast forward to the 2024 U.S. presidential election cycle, and Bad Bunny once again stepped into the conversation. He shared clips of Kamala Harris criticizing Trump, especially after comedian Tony Hinchcliffe made a joke about Puerto Rico during a rally at Madison Square Garden. That post got massive attention, and beyond politics, he's also known for LGBTQ+ advocacy. In 2020, during an appearance on The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, he honored Alexa Luciano, a transgender woman from Puerto Rico whose death had shaken the community. He used that spotlight to push for respect and awareness, showing that his platform isn't just about music, it's about people too. He stepped on stage wearing a black skirt and a white shirt that read, "They killed Alexa, not a man in a skirt." That outfit alone sent shockwaves through social media. It wasn't subtle, it was direct, emotional, and impossible to ignore. Some people praised him for using his platform to speak up. Others were furious. Either way, everyone was talking. That same year, Bad Bunny continued showing support for the LGBTQ+ community by appearing in drag in one of his music videos. He didn't just hint at support, he made bold creative choices that challenged expectations. For some fans, that made him fearless. For critics, it crossed a line they weren't ready for. There were other moments that stirred controversy too. At a New York Yankees game, he and his friends did not stand during the performance of "God Bless America." That sparked backlash online, with some accusing him of being disrespectful. Supporters argued it was personal expression. Critics called it unpatriotic. The divide grew even sharper. All of this built up to what became one of the most debated halftime show selections ever. When it was announced he would headline the Super Bowl, even Donald Trump weighed in publicly. Several Republican politicians echoed similar reactions, some claiming they didn't know who he was, others saying the NFL made a bad call. The culture clash was loud. One major topic tied to all of this is U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, commonly known as ICE. ICE operates under the Department of Homeland Security and says its mission is to enforce immigration laws and protect national security. However, the agency has faced strong criticism from many activists and public figures. During the Obama administration, ICE publicly emphasized focusing on individuals accused of serious crimes. Under the Trump administration, policies expanded enforcement priorities to include a broader range of undocumented individuals. That shift became a huge flashpoint in national debate, and Bad Bunny has been one of the artists openly critical of how those policies impact immigrant communities. With the expanded enforcement push, things didn't just stay tense, they exploded. Beginning in December 2025, Operation Metro Surge brought thousands of federal agents from U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement and related agencies into Minnesota, especially in Minneapolis and St. Paul. People reported aggressive raids at workplaces, houses of worship, schools, and neighborhoods, sparking fear and outrage in immigrant communities and beyond. Arrests of both undocumented immigrants and U.S. citizens didn't calm things. It fueled massive protests that sometimes put demonstrators and police head-to-head. Then, in early January 2026, everything shifted into national crisis mode. On January 7th, ICE agent Jonathan Ross shot and killed 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good, a U.S. citizen in Minneapolis during enforcement activity. Good had dropped her young child off at school and stopped to monitor agents in her neighborhood. Witnesses say there was no immediate threat when shots rang out, killing her almost instantly. Thousands protested her death, and police arrests followed as emotions boiled over across the city and country. Just a few weeks later, on January 24th, a second fatal shooting rocked the region. Federal agents killed 37-year-old ICU nurse Alex Jeffrey Pretty during a separate confrontation tied to the same enforcement surge. Officials claimed Pretty approached officers with a firearm, but video and family accounts muddied that narrative, showing him holding a phone and trying to help someone who had been knocked down by agents moments before. His death intensified outrage and drew even wider protests demanding accountability. By January's end, the Twin Cities and other U.S. cities were awash in demonstrations, memorials, and calls for change. Protesters organized major strikes and nationwide actions, demanding the withdrawal of federal agents, legal accountability for officers involved in the deaths, and even the abolition of ICE itself. Thousands took to the streets, and clashes with law enforcement, including arrests, became common as frustration with the operation's scope and tactics spread nationwide. So the stakes were crazy high for Bad Bunny, an artist who has openly criticized the U.S. government and immigration enforcement, especially after the nationwide tension over ICE and federal agents. Conservatives hammered back hard. Corey Lewandowski, a senior advisor at the Department of Homeland Security, even claimed that ICE agents would be in the audience at Bad Bunny's halftime show. Other Homeland Security officials echoed that idea, turning a performance announcement into a political flashpoint. Meanwhile, critics insisted an American should headline the Super Bowl halftime show, even though Puerto Rico is officially part of the United States. Supporters fired back that fact all over social media. Eventually, Bad Bunny addressed the controversy during his monologue on Saturday Night Live, saying he was still proud and excited to perform, and emphasized how honored he was to represent his Latin culture on that massive stage. When asked why the National Football League picked him, Commissioner Roger Goodell said something straightforward. He's one of the most popular entertainers in the world. That's what the NFL tries to do. Pick artists who bring entertainment and excitement to the biggest halftime audience on earth. He also made it clear that despite all the backlash, there were zero plans to cancel the performance. The goal has been to attract younger audiences, and he pointed out that no halftime pick ever escapes criticism, no matter who it is. In reaction, right-wing group Turning Point USA, founded by Charlie Kirk and now led by his wife Erica Kirk, didn't just sit back. They announced they would host their own alternate all-American halftime show featuring Kid Rock a week before Bad Bunny's performance. That version was meant to counter the NFL's choice and appeal to fans unhappy with the Spanish-language show, which turned out to be one of the most talked-about halftime broadcasts in recent memory. When Bad Bunny won his first Spanish-language Album of the Year at the Grammy Awards, he didn't keep it light. He made it personal. In his acceptance speech, he said, "I want to dedicate this award to all the people that had to leave their homeland, their country, to follow their dreams." That line alone hit deep. Then he added, "Before I say thanks to God, I'm going to say ice out. We're not savage, we're not animals, we're not aliens. We are humans and we are Americans." That wasn't random. That was a message loud and clear. After all that build-up, the politics, the criticism, the headlines, it felt like his Super Bowl halftime show was guaranteed to explode into a direct protest. People expected banners, speeches, maybe even a straight call-out of ICE or Trump. But instead, he flipped the script. Rather than going fully confrontational, he chose celebration over chaos. He leaned into culture, unity, and symbolism. But trust me, the messages were still there if you looked closely. From a bird's-eye view, the performance felt like a journey through Puerto Rico and broader Latin culture. The visuals had layers. The choreography told stories. It even gave off vibes similar to Lil Wayne's A Milli video with its constant motion and raw energy. But this wasn't just style for the sake of style. The stage itself was designed to resemble Puerto Rico's sugarcane fields. And here's the wild part. That massive green field wasn't grass at all. It was people dressed in green, moving together as one. On Reddit, one user wrote, "This calls out Puerto Rico's slave history and being exploited for its resources and labor. America invaded Puerto Rico in 1898 and devalued their currency, appropriated the land, turned large agricultural areas to grow sugarcane. This resulted in loss of poverty across Puerto Rico." Whether you agree with that take or not, the symbolism had people talking non-stop. During the performance, He played a snippet of Daddy Yankee's hit Gasolina and told the crowd, "You're listening to music from Puerto Rico, the barrios, and the projects." That line wasn't just hype, it was pride. He was making it clear where this sound came from and who built it from the ground up. Then he joked on stage saying, "Sorry guys, I just can't roll my arms. I don't know what's wrong with my tongue, but I'm gonna disappoint you in this video." That playful moment made it feel real and unscripted, like he was just being himself in front of the whole world. At one point, he handed his Grammy to a young boy on stage. Social media instantly started speculating, with some claiming the child was Liam Ramos, a boy reportedly detained by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. But that wasn't accurate. The child was actually a young actor named Lincoln Fox. Still, the symbolism of passing the award to a child had people reading between the lines. He layered the show with cultural shout-outs too. He invited Tota, the 85-year-old owner of Caribbean Social Club, on stage. That club is one of the last of its kind in New York, surviving waves of gentrification. Bringing her into the spotlight felt intentional, like honoring the old guard while the world watched. Even the stage props had people analyzing every detail. A taco stand labeled Villa's Tacos sparked debate. Some online said it referenced Pancho Villa, the revolutionary often described as the only person to invade the U.S. Others pointed out it's simply the name of a real taco shop. Maybe it's layered meaning. Maybe it's coincidence. Either way, people were dissecting it non-stop. When it came to the food stands, the coconut stand, nail salon stand, taco stand, one Reddit user wrote, "Poverty is a big topic of conversation here. The coconut stand, nail, salon stand, and taco stand emphasize how Puerto Ricans, and in general, how in Latin America you have to hustle and get creative to get by." That take hit hard, because the theme of hustle and survival has always been part of the story. Nothing on that stage looked random. Every piece felt like it meant something. In many Latin American communities, opening small food stands is just part of survival. It's normal to walk down a block and see family-run businesses everywhere, hustling day and night to feed their families. That everyday grind was reflected all over the stage. Even boxing made an appearance, and that wasn't random either. In places like Mexico and Puerto Rico, boxing has long been seen as a path out of poverty, a real shot at changing your life through discipline and grit. Then came one of the most unexpected moments of the night. A couple got engaged and then married right there during the performance, with Lady Gaga singing at the ceremony. And yes, reports said the wedding was real. Some viewers loved the romance. Others argued that having Gaga close out that segment was symbolic, suggesting it reflected a pattern where Latino culture is celebrated, but often framed as background entertainment. The internet was buzzing with theories. The celebrity presence didn't stop there. Faces like Cardi B, Jessica Alba, and Pedro Pascal were spotted throughout the show, adding even more star power. It felt massive, layered, and intentional. But culture wasn't the only message woven into the performance. There were sharper political undertones, too. At one key moment, Ricky Martin stepped forward and sang the chorus of Bad Bunny's song, "What Happened to Hawaii." The lyrics hit hard. "They want to take away my river and the beach, too. They want my neighborhood and for Grandma to leave because I don't want them to do to you. What happened to Hawaii?" That line alone sparked major conversation. The reference to Hawaii touched on historical tensions surrounding how the United States acquired the islands in the late 19th century, a process that involved political maneuvering, economic interests, and eventually annexation. For many, the comparison highlighted concerns about land, culture, and displacement. Whether viewers saw it as bold commentary or layered symbolism, it was clear the message wasn't random. Every lyric, every guest, every prop felt like it had weight behind it. At one point in the performance, a voice said, "We're still friends. We're still just allies. Ah, but let us put one more here." Then came the line about World War II, martial law, and control tightening up. The message was subtle but sharp. It referenced the complicated history between the United States and territories like Puerto Rico, where military presence and political control have long been debated. Right after that, the stage shifted dramatically. Power lines appeared to explode, performers fell to the ground, and chaos filled the screen to symbolize the island's ongoing power outages. That hit home for many viewers. One Reddit user wrote, "Storms and poor electrical infrastructure are a constant issue on all U.S. territories. Longest I personally went without power was 2.5 months on the island I lived on." The frustration around infrastructure in Puerto Rico has been a serious topic for years, especially after hurricanes exposed how fragile the electric grid can be. Some residents argue that the federal response and funding have not always matched the scale of the problem. That tension was clearly woven into the performance. Then came a powerful visual. Bad Bunny walked out holding the Puerto Rican flag, but not just any version. This one had the light blue triangle, often associated with Puerto Rican sovereignty and independence movements. That detail mattered. The darker blue triangle typically reflects the island's current territorial status, while the lighter shade has historically symbolized a push for self-determination. In fact, after 1948, the original independence flag and pro-independence expressions were restricted for years under local law. So that light blue flag wasn't random at all. At the very end, Bad Bunny spoke in English for the first and only time, saying, "God bless America." Then the screen lit up with 20 different flags from across North, Central, and South America, including the United States and Puerto Rico. He spiked a football that read, "Together, we are America." And behind him flashed the words, "The only thing more powerful than hate is love." He didn't scream. He didn't rant. He didn't go nuclear. He layered it. Culture, history, unity, subtle protest, pride. Whether people loved it or hated it, one thing is clear. It wasn't just a halftime show. It was a statement. If you want more deep breakdowns like this and the real stories behind the headlines, make sure you subscribe to Juicy Reel so you don't miss the next one.
Wasn't political. Bad Bunny's halftime show.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah.
Well, it resonated. It was smart because it wasn't preaching. It was showing. It was demonstrating and displaying. This is what a community is. And people who did not speak Spanish and have never been to Puerto Rico, they saw that elderly woman serving a drink and the kids dancing with their grandmas, and it was intergenerational, and it was a reminder of what Dr. King called the beloved community can look like.
8 days ago, Bad Bunny stepped onto the biggest stage in America and made history. For the first time ever, a Super Bowl halftime show was performed entirely in Spanish by a solo artist. What happened next? Total chaos. Congressional investigations started popping up. Wild conspiracy theories flooded social media, and even Barack Obama stepped in with a response. All of that, over just 13 minutes on stage. It all went down at Super Bowl 60, held at Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara. On paper, the headline should have been the Seattle Seahawks defeating the New England Patriots 29-13. But let's be real. Nobody was arguing about touchdowns the next morning. The internet was on fire over halftime. Born Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio, Bad Bunny had been announced back in September 2025 after the NFL teamed up with Apple Music and Rock Nation to lock him in. The moment the news dropped, the reactions were loud. Some people celebrated, others questioned it, and he made his stance crystal clear. This is for my people, my culture, and our history. That wasn't just promo talk. That was a statement. And the timing? Unreal. Just 1 week before kickoff, Bad Bunny made history again. On February 1st, he became the first artist recording exclusively in Spanish to win Album of the Year at the Grammy Awards for his album Debí Tirar Más Fotos. That win wasn't just a trophy, it was momentum, it was power, and it set the stage for a halftime show that would shake the culture way beyond football. When he grabbed that Grammy, he didn't just say thank you and walk off. During his speech at the Grammy Awards, he dedicated the win to all the people that had to leave their homeland, their country, to follow their dreams. That line hit deep. And a week later, that exact message was woven straight into his Super Bowl performance. It wasn't random. It was intentional. It was personal. Now here's where it gets interesting. The NFL didn't lock in Bad Bunny right away. Early talks reportedly included Taylor Swift, but she turned it down. Why? She didn't want to headline a game where her fiancé, Travis Kelce, could potentially be on the field. That would have been a media circus on another level. Even after the Kansas City Chiefs were knocked out of the postseason on December 14th, 2025, the wheels were already turning behind the scenes. Big names were floating everywhere. Lady Gaga, Mariah Carey, Justin Bieber, Drake, even Metallica was reportedly in the mix. The rumors were wild, but once Bad Bunny secured the spot, there was no turning back. When the performance finally aired, a massive 128.2 million viewers tuned in on NBC. That made it the fourth most watched halftime show ever. Only Kendrick Lamar's 2025 show with 133.5 million, Michael Jackson's legendary 1993 performance with 133.4 million, and Usher's 2024 set with 129.3 million pulled bigger numbers. That's elite company. Love it or hate it, those 13 minutes locked Bad Bunny into halftime history forever. The TV numbers were huge, but YouTube went even crazier. In just 24 hours, Bad Bunny's halftime show became the most watched Super Bowl performance ever on the platform. That's not just hype, that's domination. The stage? It wasn't just a stage, it was Puerto Rico brought straight to California. He built a full Puerto Rican village right there in the stadium. At the center stood La Casita, a traditional-style home that anchored the whole production. The show opened in a sugarcane field, with backup dancers dressed like field workers, creating a powerful visual right from the first second. No warm-up, no easing in, just statement after statement. Then the set shifted into a marketplace scene inspired by La Placita, surrounded by palm trees and island vegetation. The details were sharp. The vibe felt authentic. Dressed head to toe in white, rocking a jersey with Ocasio and the number 64 on it, he made sure his name and his roots were front and center. He ran through hits like Titi Me Preguntó, Baile Inolvidable, DTMF, Monaco, and Yo Perreo Sola, keeping the energy high the entire 13 minutes. Then things leveled up. Lady Gaga joined him for a Latin-inspired version of Die With a Smile, her Grammy-winning collab with Bruno Mars. And out of nowhere, Ricky Martin stepped in with an acoustic version of Lo Mejor de Mi Vida Eres Tú. That crowd reaction? Insane. The cameos didn't stop there. Pedro Pascal, Jessica Alba, Cardi B, Karol G. They all popped up throughout the show, adding star power every few minutes. And when he performed El Apagón, his song touching on gentrification in Puerto Rico, the symbolism got even heavier. At one point, an actual wedding ceremony happened right there on stage, confirmed by his team. That wasn't acting. That was real. and in one emotional moment, he handed his Grammy statuette to a young boy in the crowd, passing the torch in front of millions. Every minute had meaning. Every second was loaded. Plus, the emotional moment got even deeper. A child actor named Lincoln Fox Ramadan came on stage, styled to look like a young Bad Bunny. Same energy, same vibe. It looked like he was handing the Grammy to his younger self. That image hit hard, like a full circle moment playing out live in front of millions. Then came the symbolism. He climbed an electrical pole, a direct reference to Puerto Rico's ongoing power grid struggles. No words needed. The message was loud. At another moment, a football with the words, "Together we are America," got spiked into the ground. Boom. Clear statement. On screen, the words, "The only thing more powerful than hate is love," flashed across the stadium. That wasn't subtle. That was bold. The Puerto Rican flag was painted across his back while dancers waved flags from nations all across North, Central, and South America. He even listed more than 20 countries during the performance, uniting the whole hemisphere in one breath. And in one of the only English lines of the night, he shouted, "God bless America." That line? Strategic, loud, impossible to ignore. The numbers backed it up too. Apple Music reported his streams jumped 7 times after the show. DTMF, Bail Inolvidable, and TT Me Pregunto shot to the top as his most played tracks almost instantly. That halftime boost was real. And here's the twist that shocked people. Despite the massive production, the millions spent on staging, and the cultural weight of it all, Bad Bunny reportedly earned around $1,000 per day under his Screen Actors Guild union scale contract. The National Football League covered the production costs, which can run into the millions. So while the show looked like a billion-dollar moment, his direct paycheck was surprisingly modest. But everything changed on Monday evening, February 10th. The tone of the conversation shifted fast, and not in the way anyone expected. Then the political firestorm exploded. Andy Ogles from Tennessee sent a formal letter to the House Energy and Commerce Committee, blasting the halftime show as pure smut brazenly aired on national television. He accused the performance of crossing serious lines, pointing to dancers moving provocatively and moments where Bad Bunny grabbed his crotch on stage. Ogles claimed the lyrics promoted unspeakable depravities and even gave him a new nickname, Raunchy Rabbit. That wasn't subtle. That was a direct attack. He doubled down, saying being here is a privilege, and argued the show proved Puerto Rico should never become a U.S. state. That comment? It set social media off instantly. Meanwhile, Randy Fine from Florida called the halftime show illegal. He claimed that if those same lyrics had been performed in English on live television, the broadcast would have been cut and massive fines would have followed. According to him, the language barrier shielded the performance from consequences. That claim added even more heat to the debate. A formal complaint was also sent to the Federal Communications Commission, demanding strong action, including potential fines and even broadcast license reviews targeting the National Football League, NBC, and Bad Bunny himself. The pressure wasn't just online anymore, it was official. Then Mark Alford appeared on television saying, "We are still investigating this." He admitted he doesn't speak fluent Spanish, but still described the lyrics as very disturbing. That statement raised eyebrows fast. Critics questioned how you can fully judge lyrics in a language you don't understand. By Monday night, this wasn't just about music. It had turned into a full political showdown playing out on national TV. But here's the part that flipped the whole narrative. The Federal Communications Commission reviewed the performance and ruled that Bad Bunny did not violate any broadcast rules. That's right. No fines, no penalties, no shutdowns. Songs like Titi Me Pregunto, Monaco, and Sapphire were cleaned up for the Super Bowl stage. The explicit lyrics people associate with those tracks, they were removed. The raw club versions never made it to live TV. Big difference. After reviewing everything, the FCC decided there were no violations and shelved further scrutiny. Case closed. And when you zoom out, halftime outrage isn't new at all. Kendrick Lamar's 2025 halftime show pulled in 125 complaints. Rihanna's 2023 performance sparked 103 complaints, with some viewers even arguing that twerking should be treated like dropping the F-bomb on air. And remember the 2020 show with Shakira and Jennifer Lopez? That one racked up more than 1,300 complaints, and Bad Bunny actually made a cameo during that show too. So controversy at halftime? That's practically tradition. Now here's another twist. While all this was happening, there was a completely different halftime event airing the same night. Turning Point USA hosted what they called the All-American Halftime Show, headlined by Kid Rock, alongside Brantley Gilbert, Lee Brice, and Gabby Barrett. That lineup was announced on February 4th, just days before the game. So while one stage sparked political headlines and FCC letters, another stage was pushing a totally different vibe at the exact same time. 2 halftime shows, 2 Americas, one massive culture clash playing out in real time. The alternative event leaned heavy into a faith, family, and freedom theme and streamed live across YouTube, Rumble, and other platforms. Turning Point USA claimed massive numbers, saying they pulled in over 5 million simultaneous viewers across platforms. According to them, more than 5 million were on their main YouTube channel alone, nearly 1 million on another channel, plus hundreds of thousands elsewhere. Big claims. Big energy. Some reports even pushed that number to 6.1 million concurrent streams. And now, the replay reportedly sits somewhere around 19 to 20 million total views on YouTube. On paper, that sounds like a breakout moment. Then things took a sharp turn. Candace Owens stepped in and lit the match. She previously worked as communications director for Turning Point USA from 2017 to 2019 and had been close with the group's founder, Charlie Kirk, who passed away in September 2025 at just 31 years old. Since his passing, Owens has been publicly clashing with his widow, Erica Kirk, who now leads the organization. So there's already tension there. Between February 8th and 9th, Owens posted explosive claims accusing Turning Point USA of inflating their numbers. She alleged they paid platform advertisers and influencers to make it look like they shattered records. That's a serious accusation. She even shared a screenshot showing roughly 6,000 live viewers, 667 likes, and 175 comments about an hour after the show ended. Her message? Blunt and straight to the point. She basically suggested the record-breaking narrative didn't match the visible engagement, and once that screenshot hit social media, the debate got even louder. Now, the conversation wasn't just about culture or politics anymore, it was about credibility. And that made the whole situation even messier. Then Candace didn't slow down. She went even harder. On a later podcast, Candace Owens said, "The problem with people who have a lot of money they didn't earn is that they tend to have no idea how stuff actually works." That line alone had people reacting fast. She followed it up with more detailed claims about the alternative halftime show tied to Turning Point USA. According to Owens, the show wasn't even fully live. She alleged it was pre-recorded 2 weeks before the Super Bowl at a Georgia soundstage. She claimed there were only about 180 people in the audience, and that they were paid $250 each to be there. She also said performers did 3 to 5 takes of every song and that camera tricks were used to make the crowd look way bigger than it really was. Those are strong accusations. She added that some attendees supposedly didn't fully understand what they were signing up for, and that many of them actually liked Bad Bunny. That twist made the whole situation even more layered. But here's where it got complicated. Owens admitted she had mixed feelings about Bad Bunny himself. At first, she said, "I hate both options," criticizing the idea of a halftime show without a word of English spoken. Yet later, she gave him props. She praised his stage design, calling it pretty cool, and one of the cooler ones I've seen in a long time. Her exact words? "I loved that it looked like a little pueblo," and she said it felt very authentic to him and how he grew up. That's a big shift in tone. Then, on February 14th, 2026, the conversation leveled up again. Barack Obama entered the chat during an interview published by YouTuber Brian Tyler Cohen. Obama's take cut straight through the chaos. He said about Bad Bunny's performance, "It wasn't political, it resonated. It was smart because it wasn't preaching. It was showing, it was demonstrating and displaying this is what a community is." That statement shifted the vibe completely. Suddenly, it wasn't just noise and outrage. It became a bigger conversation about culture, identity, and what America actually looks like on its biggest stage. He didn't stop there. Barack Obama went deeper, saying that even people who don't speak Spanish and have never stepped foot in Puerto Rico could still understand what they were seeing. He pointed to the elderly woman serving a drink on stage, the kids dancing with their grandmothers, that intergenerational energy. He said it was a reminder of what Dr. King called the beloved community. Not perfect, not polished, but connected. Obama also acknowledged the complexity. He said, "Which is not perfect, and it's messy sometimes, and I guarantee you not all those lyrics were probably correct, and if you translated them, people are complicated." That wasn't blind praise. That was nuance, but he emphasized there was a feeling of, "All right, there's room for everybody here." That line hit different. The interview with Brian Tyler Cohen didn't just stick to halftime talk. They also touched on recent events in Minnesota tied to immigration enforcement. Obama described certain behavior as deeply concerning and dangerous, making it clear he sees bigger issues playing out beyond entertainment. He also reacted to a viral video involving him and Michelle Obama, calling the current climate a clown show happening across social media and television. He pointed out that some people who once valued decorum and respect for public office now seem to have dropped that standard completely. That critique was sharp. As soon as those clips hit the internet, reactions exploded. Supporters praised his focus on unity and community. Critics pushed back. The timeline turned into a battlefield of opinions. And when you step back, it's wild. A 13-minute performance, mostly in Spanish, turned into a full-blown national debate about identity, language, culture, and who belongs on America's biggest stage. That halftime show didn't just entertain, it exposed where the country stands right now. Ricky Martin, who joined the performance, summed up the emotion afterwards, saying, "They need to give me several hours to even begin processing this. Tsunami of emotions." That wasn't hype, that was raw. And whether people loved the show or criticized it, that emotional wave was real. This wasn't just flashing lights and hit songs. It turned into a full-blown cultural moment. Questions started flying. Who gets the spotlight? Whose language is acceptable on the biggest stage in America? What does being American even look like today? That halftime show forced people to confront it. 6 days later, when Barack Obama weighed in, he offered one possible answer: make room for everybody. Simple idea. Powerful message. If you've made it this far, you already know this wasn't just about music. It was about culture.
NFL, dude, you had that I don't even want to say the faggot's name because like it's just like what somebody give me his name. Just come say his name. I want to say, you know what I'm talking about, the halftime show guy, the Puerto Rican, right? Puerto Rican.
Bad Bunny?
Bro, yeah, that fucking faggot. Like, dude, it is so crazy that this is America now. Like, back in the day, dude, the NFL was the fucking standard of being a fucking man.
A massive UFC fighter jumped online and went off on a loud, ugly rant about Bad Bunny's Super Bowl halftime show, and he got almost every fact wrong. The internet didn't let it slide either. They corrected him in real time, clip by clip, post by post. And trust me, watching that meltdown unfold was way more satisfying than anyone expected. On February 8th, 2026, at Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, California, Bad Bunny stepped onto that stage and made history.
And now every fucking year, the NFL, I think they all get together around a table and say, you know, guys, how do we fucking ruin this sport? How do we gay it up? How do we fucking ruin it? Well, I'll tell you what, why don't we bring a gay foreigner who doesn't speak fucking English and have him perform it? Like, get the fuck, and then you have like, yeah, dude, it's like, the NFL is like fucking pathetic these days. So even like the NFL players can probably hate it. Yeah, no. NFL's gay. I think we'd all agree the NFL got real gay.
He became the first Latino solo artist to headline the halftime show almost entirely in Spanish, and he did it without watering anything down. Then came the surprises. Lady Gaga popped out. Ricky Martin hit the stage. At one point, there was an actual wedding in the middle of the performance. Yes, a real one. And somehow, 380 people were dressed as grass, which sounds fake, but it's completely true and still hilarious.
Anyways, you might not know these, but I'm doing the Super Bowl halftime show. Very happy. I'm very happy, and I think everyone is happy about it. Even Fox News. And if you didn't understand what I just said, you have 4 months to learn.
128.2 million viewers tuned in, making it the 4th most watched halftime show ever. Only Kendrick Lamar's 2025 record breaker, Michael Jackson in 1993, and Usher in 2024 ranked higher. The Spanish-language broadcast alone peaked at 4.8 million viewers, the highest ever for a Super Bowl halftime show on Spanish television. That wasn't just a performance. That was a cultural moment. Social media exploded in a way the NFL had never seen before. The halftime show pulled in 4 billion views in just 24 hours, a 137% jump compared to the year before. That's not hype. That's raw data. His album De Tiara Moss photos moved 250,000 units the following week, up 191% from the week before and the biggest sales week of his entire career. Apple Music reported his streams shot up to 7 times his normal rate right after the performance ended. Every metric said the same thing. This wasn't just big, it was dominant. And that's exactly why what happened next feels so ridiculous. About 10 days later, at a UFC Fight Night Media Day in Houston, ahead of his bout with Anthony Hernandez, Sean Strickland randomly launched into a rant that nobody asked for. No one mentioned Bad Bunny. No one asked about the NFL. No one brought up the halftime show. He just grabbed the mic and started swinging at the air. Then it got awkward fast. Strickland said, "Look at the NFL, dude. I don't even want to say the EFS name because it's just like air. Somebody give me his name." He was mid-rant and didn't even know the name of the artist he was attacking. He literally had to ask a reporter in the room to tell him who he was mad at. That's when the internet knew this was about to get messy. Once someone finally said, "Bad Bunny," Strickland doubled down instead of backing off. He went on a heated rant, claiming the NFL used to be the standard of being a man. And now, every year, they supposedly sit around asking, how do we ruin this sport? He kept pushing the idea that bringing in an artist who performs in Spanish somehow ruined football. Then he wrapped it up by saying the league had become pathetic and repeating that the NFL had got real gay lately. That wasn't a slip. That was the tone the whole time. And here's where it completely falls apart. The biggest and most embarrassing mistake in that entire outburst is simple. It's basic facts. Bad Bunny is Puerto Rican. Puerto Rico is a United States territory. That means Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio is an American citizen by birth. Calling him a foreigner, an immigrant, or someone who doesn't belong isn't just disrespectful. It's flat out wrong. This wasn't some deep political debate. It was someone loudly criticizing a performance while not even knowing the most basic information about the artist. Once that one fact is corrected, the whole rant crumbles instantly. And that's exactly why the backlash hit so fast. Because when your argument is built on something that easy to disprove, the internet doesn't need long to respond. Strickland built his whole argument on a claim he never even checked. He went after a performer whose name he didn't know and whose background he clearly didn't understand. And just to make this crystal clear, Bad Bunny speaks English. Performing in Spanish was a choice. It was a celebration of his culture and a nod to more than 70 million Latino Americans the NFL acknowledged by putting him on that stage. That context never seemed to enter Strickland's thinking. And this is where the situation shifts from one bad opinion to something bigger. Sean Strickland is a 30-7 UFC middleweight fighter who briefly held the title. In September 2023, he shocked the world by upsetting Israel Adesanya and grabbing the belt. Then in January 2024, he lost it to Dricus du Plessis. The rematch in February 2025? Another loss to du Plessis. Heading into Houston to face Anthony Hernandez, he was carrying 2 straight title defeats on his record. And that matters when you look at the intensity he brought to that media day. There's also real history behind him. Strickland has spoken openly about a rough childhood that shaped his personality and how he presents himself publicly. That background explains some of the edge, but it doesn't excuse launching into a rant built on facts that don't hold up. Strickland has been open about his past. He grew up with a father he describes as physically and mentally abusive, and those experiences left real scars. During his teenage years, he has said his grandfather exposed him to neo-Nazi ideology, which added another heavy layer to an already unstable environment. He was expelled from school in 9th grade after committing a crime. According to Strickland himself, his mother taking him to an MMA gym is what helped redirect his life and give him structure. None of that background excuses reckless public behavior, but it does help explain why, at 34 years old, he can still sound like someone whose worldview formed in his teens and never fully evolved. That context matters when you look at what happened next, because the timing of this rant was wild. Strickland was just coming off a 6-month suspension when he sat down at that media day. The Nevada State Athletic Commission had suspended him and fined him $5,000 after he stormed into the cage at a regional MMA event he wasn't even fighting on and punched another competitor. And that competitor? He was reportedly a police officer outside of MMA. That's the headspace he was in walking into Houston. The suspension was directly tied to anger management problems. Strickland had just finished serving discipline for violent behavior linked to poor impulse control, and his big return to the spotlight was a heated rant that sparked outrage. That timing alone raised eyebrows. And it didn't stop there. Just a week before that media day, he had posted a meme showing himself as an ICE agent standing next to his opponent, Anthony Hernandez, a Mexican-American fighter portrayed wearing a sombrero and poncho. That wasn't some random joke that missed the mark. It showed a pattern, the same tone, the same angle, the same type of messaging, the internet reacted fast. Former NFL quarterback Robert Griffin III delivered what many called the sharpest response in sports that year. He posted, "Sean Strickland got hit so hard by a foreigner that he forgot Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens. Not to mention that this misogynist crybaby would get tossed like salad if he ever stepped foot on a football field in the NFL. Worry about not getting knocked out in your next fight." And he came with receipts. Attached was a clip from UFC 276 in July 2022, where Brazilian fighter Alex Pereira knocked Strickland out cold. The foreigner line wasn't random, it was layered. A direct reminder that someone from another country had already put him flat on the canvas. RG3 understood exactly how to flip the narrative, and he didn't miss. Journalist Jemile Hill stepped back and asked a bigger question. What other major sport consistently produces behavior like this from its athletes and shrugs it off as part of the culture? Her focus wasn't just Strickland as one person. It was about what MMA promotes, what it tolerates, and what it protects. Online, the reaction split the way it always does. Critics pointed out the obvious. Strickland called a U.S. citizen a foreigner while not even knowing his name. Supporters tried to argue the NFL had made the wrong entertainment choice, but that argument was shaky from the start. 128 million people tuned in. The numbers showed massive engagement. Billions of views followed. That's not a silent protest. That's public approval at scale, and here's what makes this even more interesting. Bad Bunny saw the resistance coming long before Strickland ever spoke. The backlash began the moment the NFL announced him on September 28, 2025. President Donald Trump called the selection absolutely ridiculous. Then Speaker of the House Mike Johnson labeled it a terrible decision and even suggested Lee Greenwood as a better alternative. That wasn't random noise. That was organized pushback. Then DHS Secretary Kristi Noem announced that ICE agents would be stationed at the Super Bowl. That statement hit differently, especially since Bad Bunny had already excluded mainland U.S. dates from his world tour out of concern that ICE activity near his shows could put fans at risk. He had clearly been thinking about the climate long before the halftime stage lights ever turned on. This wasn't just about one rant. It was about culture, politics, sports, and who gets to define what American looks like, all colliding on the biggest stage in the country. Bad Bunny answered all of it the smoothest way possible on Saturday Night Live in October 2025. Calm, smiling, completely unbothered, he told critics in Spanish that they had 4 months to learn the language. No yelling, no panic, just confidence. Then he stepped onto the Super Bowl stage and did exactly what he said he would do. He performed for 128 million people. He brought out Lady Gaga. Ricky Martin joined him. A real wedding happened in the middle of the halftime show. And the week after, his album Debí Tirar Más Fotos jumped 191% in sales. That's how you respond. Not with tweets, but with results. California Governor Gavin Newsom even declared February 8th Bad Bunny Day. The 68th Grammy Awards had already crowned Debí Tirar Más Fotos Album of the Year before the halftime show ever happened. The momentum was already there. The Super Bowl just amplified it. Meanwhile, Turning Point USA organized an all-American halftime show alternative that same night, headlined by Kid Rock. That stream pulled 21 million YouTube views. The official Bad Bunny halftime show? Around 61 million views on YouTube in the same window. Even the viewers who tried to boycott him were outnumbered nearly 3-1 by the ones who tuned in. And while all that played out online, Strickland stepped into the Toyota Center in Houston on February 21st to face Anthony Hernandez, with the noise still echoing. Strickland's night in Houston didn't end the way he planned. Anthony Hernandez stopped him by TKO in the third round. That snapped Strickland's 8-fight winning streak. Hernandez walked away with a $100,000 Performance of the Night bonus and a 9-day medical suspension attached to the win. Just like that, the spotlight shifted. Here's the twist no one can ignore. The controversy around Strickland's rant brought extra attention to the fight card. More clicks, more clips, more headlines. His angry speech about a man whose name he didn't even know likely drove more eyes to the very event he was promoting. That irony doesn't need help. It speaks for itself. And at the center of this whole situation is something that deserves to be said clearly. Strickland stood at a press conference, asked a reporter to name a global superstar he was criticizing, called a U.S. citizen a foreigner, and casually used language meant to tear people down. All of it built around a narrow version of masculinity so fragile that a performer dancing on a stage felt like a threat that required a public outburst. That's not sharp commentary. That's not clever humor. That's a grown man in his mid-30s still operating from ideas formed in his teens and never seriously challenged. Meanwhile, Bad Bunny kept moving forward. Bigger stages, bigger numbers, bigger moments. If you want breakdowns that go deeper than headlines and show you what's really happening behind these viral moments, hit subscribe to Juicy Reel, because we're just getting started. And here's the part nobody can ignore. While Strickland was fighting ghosts at a press conference, Bad Bunny was fighting and winning on the biggest stage in entertainment. One man was arguing about what America used to be. The other was standing in front of 128 million people, showing what America actually looks like right now. This wasn't just about football. It wasn't just about music. It was about visibility. Culture shifts don't ask for permission. They show up, perform, and let the numbers speak. And the numbers were loud. 4 billion social views. A 191% album surge. Millions more tuning in across language barriers. That's not a niche audience. That's mainstream power. And here's the real lesson. Outrage is loud, but growth is louder. The people who tried to frame the performance as the end of something accidentally helped turn it into the beginning of something bigger. Every rant created curiosity. Every complaint drove clicks. Every viral argument amplified the moment. Meanwhile, Bad Bunny didn't argue back in comment sections. He didn't spiral. He didn't chase headlines. He performed. He sold records. He collected awards. He kept moving. That's the difference between reacting and building. Meanwhile, Bad Bunny headlined the 4th most watched halftime show in Super Bowl history. He performed in the language of his culture in front of 128 million people. The week after, career best album sales, a Grammy for Album of the Year already secured, and film credits lined up alongside Edward Norton, Javier Bardem, and Viggo Mortensen waiting ahead of him. And Strickland didn't even know his name. That gap right there, that's the whole story. One man building a global legacy across music, film, and culture. The other launching a rant based on facts he never checked. One expanding his reach. The other shrinking his argument in real time. Numbers don't lie. Awards don't lie. Box office credits don't lie. The stage was massive, and so was the response. Now I want to hear from you. What did you honestly think about Bad Bunny's halftime show? Drop your take in the comments. And if you want more deep dives that cut through the noise and break down moments like this without the fluff, subscribe to Juicy Reel right now. We're only getting bigger from here.
Just appeared. As soon as I saw him, I shouted, "Benito, Benito!" I got excited and he was so happy to do the pics. He was smiling. It was such a good experience. Thank you, Benito. Can't wait for the concert on Saturday.
Some stories explode because they're messy. Others explode because they make people smile. This one? It did both. And it all went down on a regular Sydney morning when most people were just fighting to survive that first cup of coffee. Out of nowhere, Bad Bunny walks into a cafe, orders breakfast like any other guy, sits down, eats, and before anyone fully processes it, he quietly flips someone's whole year upside down, maybe even their life. The internet clocked it instantly. Bad Bunny was spotted at the Rusty Rabbit, tucked into Darlinghurst, that Sydney pocket where brunch feels like an Olympic event and everyone thinks their latte art deserves a trophy. TikTok and Instagram posts started flying. No security wall, no flashy entrance, no cameras shoved in faces. Just him. Calm, low-key, unbothered. He ordered pancakes, steak, and eggs, real food, no performance energy, and ate in peace like a man who just wanted breakfast, not headlines. No speeches, no big scene, just vibes. And then something happened that nobody in that cafe will ever forget. Welcome to Inside the Heist. If you're rocking with this story, hit subscribe right now. We're building this channel step by step on the road to monetization, and every single click pushes it forward. Now back to what really went down. After he finished eating, that's when everything flipped. Bad Bunny didn't stand up and make a scene. He didn't gather attention. He simply left a $100 bill for his waitress and handed her a concert ticket. Just like that. No build-up, no announcement, no dramatic exit. Quiet generosity hits different. And here's the part that made the internet glitch. There were no cameras in his face, no staged content, no speech about giving back. Nothing. When a global superstar does something kind without trying to broadcast it, people freeze. The timeline literally pauses and goes, "Wait, what's the catch?" That's how rare it feels now. The team at Rusty Rabbit confirmed it themselves. They posted about their surprise VIP guest on Instagram stories. One upload showed the signed $100 bill, Bad Bunny written across it like proof this wasn't some rumor. Another post shared staff text messages confirming, yes, he was really there. It was real, just a normal morning that turned unreal in seconds. The caption said it all, and then they dropped a video of the waitress who served him. She talked through what he ordered, pointed at the exact table where he sat, and smiled that stunned, "Did that just happen?" smile. You know the one. The kind where reality still feels slightly off and your brain hasn't caught up yet. Then the cafe added one more detail that pushed the story into overdrive. They wrote that it definitely helped having a Spanish-speaking superstar waitress, and that she even received a concert ticket for her incredible service that morning. That single line changed everything. Suddenly, this wasn't just celebrity leaves big tip. It became personal, layered, human. It made people pause and think, that could have been me. And here's why it hits harder. Bad Bunny isn't just well-known, he's stadium-level famous, chart-dominating, culture-shifting, the kind of artist who headlines arenas and just stood on the massive stage of the Super Bowl halftime show without asking anyone for approval. That's global power. So imagine that same superstar, sitting quietly in a Sydney cafe, eating pancakes like any regular person. No spotlight, no production, just breakfast. That contrast? That's why this story spread like wildfire. This wasn't a red carpet setup. No sponsor logos, no brand partnership, no staged handshake for the cameras. This was off-duty energy, quiet, low-key, almost too normal. And that's exactly where people start raising eyebrows. Because when someone operating at that level of fame makes a small, silent move with zero announcement, it rarely feels random. In a world where every step can be filmed, monetized, clipped, and flipped into content, silence feels loud. Bad Bunny didn't need internet praise. He didn't need headlines. He didn't even need to tip that big. And yet he did it without trying to steer the story. No PR spin. No look at me. Which leaves one question hanging in the air. Why that moment? Why that way? Now here's where it gets deeper. His real name is Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio. He grew up in Vega Baja, Puerto Rico, far from luxury cafes and viral Instagram clips. Long before world tours and sold-out stadiums, he worked regular jobs, real shifts, real grind. He understands service work because he's lived it. That context changes everything. When someone who knows what it feels like to serve recognizes that effort quietly, without making it a show, it hits different. It feels intentional, not flashy, not strategic, just real. And real always moves people louder than any press campaign ever could. This didn't feel like charity, it felt like recognition. That's the difference people couldn't quite explain. But here's the part most headlines completely fumbled. The waitress didn't just receive cash. She didn't just get a ticket, she got access. And a concert ticket from Bad Bunny isn't just a fun night out. It's entry into a cultural moment. Thousands of fans sit refreshing pages, fighting digital queues, stressing out when tickets sell out in minutes. People plan months around those shows. They cry when they miss them. That ticket carries real weight. And he handed it to someone who wasn't even supposed to be in that space. Someone whose role that morning was refilling coffee and clearing plates. That's not random generosity. That's symbolism. Quiet but loud. It sends a subtle message. The gap between artist and fan isn't some untouchable wall. It's thinner than people think. And that idea? It's powerful in the best way possible, because it reminds everyone that the systems separating regular life from celebrity life aren't locked gates. Sometimes it's timing. Sometimes it's presence. Sometimes it's just doing your job well and crossing paths with the right moment. Now pause for a second. If you're still here and not subscribed, you're watching history unfold without locking in your seat. This is exactly the kind of story we unpack here. Not just what happened, but why it actually matters. Subscribe, because the real twist isn't about generosity. It's about power, visibility, and how fame is evolving right in front of us. Here's the deeper layer. Bad Bunny didn't post this. He didn't tease it. He didn't repost it with a humble caption. The story exploded because other people saw it and couldn't stay quiet. That's rare. Most celebrity, kind moments come prepackaged, filmed, polished, branded, perfectly framed for engagement. This wasn't. And in a media world trained to question everything, that almost feels suspiciously pure. But don't get it twisted. There's still strategy here, just not the obvious kind. The strongest move in modern fame isn't being everywhere at once. It's showing up just enough, in places nobody expects, doing something that feels human. That's influence. A Sydney cafe, a signed bill, a concert ticket. No press release, no statement, no follow-up interview. And somehow, a waitress doing her morning shift becomes woven into pop culture history. That's not random. That's how quiet moments turn into loud legacy. The cafe turns into a landmark overnight, and Bad Bunny reinforces an image he's been shaping for years. Not loudly, not desperately, but carefully. The guy who never forgot where he started. The internet, of course, kept scrolling. It always does. One viral clip replaces another. Someone else does something bigger, shinier, more engineered for clicks. That's the cycle. But this moment didn't disappear so easily. It stuck because it wasn't flashy. It was grounded. And grounded moments linger longer than staged spectacles ever will. If you've ever worked a service job, this hits different. If you've ever had a random act flip your whole mood in seconds, this hits even harder. And if you've ever questioned whether fame pulls people away from reality completely, this answers that in a complicated way. Bad Bunny didn't change the world that morning. He didn't fix inequality. He didn't dismantle celebrity excess. What he did was quieter, and maybe rarer. He treated someone like they mattered without turning it into a headline campaign. In 2026, that almost feels suspicious. So yeah, he ate breakfast at a Sydney cafe and gave a waitress a concert ticket. Simple on the surface, but simple doesn't mean small, and that's why people are still talking about it. What he really did that morning wasn't about the money. It wasn't even about the ticket. He reminded everyone watching that the gap between ordinary and extraordinary is thinner than we've been told. Sometimes the biggest moments don't happen on giant stages. They happen before noon, over pancakes and coffee. Now, I want to know, if you were that waitress, what would you have done? Kept the signed bill? Sold it? Framed it on your wall? Called your mom first and screamed into the phone? Drop it in the comments because those little choices say a lot about who we are. And if this is the kind of breakdown you rock with, not just viral clips, but the meaning underneath them, the psychology behind the moment, the layer most people scroll past, then subscribe right now to Juicy Reel. The quiet stories usually reveal more than the loud ones ever could, and with Bad Bunny, there's always another layer waiting to be uncovered. This is the story of an artist who stood in front of 128 million viewers, got paid almost nothing, and then watched his career explode in ways money alone could never buy. Bad Bunny hit the stage at the Super Bowl halftime show on February 8, 2026, and history was made for more than one reason. But the real shock? It wasn't the lights, the crowd, or the headlines. It was the paycheck. Everyone thinks the number must be insane. Hundreds of millions watching, global buzz, non-stop coverage. So how much did he actually make? Around $1,000 a day. That's basically the Screen Actors Guild American Federation of Television and Radio Artists minimum. And that's it. No massive appearance fee. No performance bonus for 128 million eyeballs. No extra check for being the first solo Latino artist to headline that stage. On a regular tour night, he brings in between $1.5 and $2 million per show. That means the biggest stage of his life came with a serious pay cut. Sounds wild, right? But that tiny check unlocked something way bigger than a direct deposit ever could. What the National Football League and Apple Music did pay for was the spectacle, and that bill was massive. Reports estimate the production landed somewhere between $10 and $15 million. That money covered everything splashed across your screen. The 380 performers dressed like bushes and grass sliding across the field, the surprise guests popping out of nowhere, even the real wedding that unfolded mid-performance. It looked unreal because it was built to be. But here's the twist. Bad Bunny himself? Basically unpaid talent inside a giant high-budget machine. And that's not rare. The Weeknd reportedly dropped $7 million of his own cash to level up his 2021 halftime show. Katy Perry once said she didn't want an asterisk next to her name for playing that stage. These artists know the real equation, and it has nothing to do with the check handed over that night. Because the second the lights went out, the real payoff kicked in. Within hours, the streaming surge hit like a tidal wave. His Spotify numbers jumped 470% in the US alone and 210% worldwide. By the next morning, he wasn't just trending. He was holding the top 6 spots on Spotify's US Daily Top Songs chart at the same time. That's not hype. That's dominance. Apple Music revealed that his plays skyrocketed to 7 times higher than a normal day. That's not a bump. That's a takeover. His track DTMF shot from number 9 straight to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, pulling in 43 million streams in just 1 week, an 85% jump. Digital downloads, up 262%. Meanwhile, Bale Inolvidable made almost the same power move, leaping from number 19 to number 2, with streams climbing 141%. The numbers weren't creeping, they were sprinting. And the album Behind the Storm? Debí tirar más fotos. It moved 250,000 album equivalent units the week after the show, a 191% surge and the biggest week of Bad Bunny's entire career. But here's what makes it even crazier. Just 1 week before the Super Bowl, on February 1st, the album had already won Album of the Year at the Grammy Awards, becoming the first Spanish-language project to ever take that crown. He walked into Super Bowl Sunday already dominating the game, and left with the momentum turned all the way up. Even Ricky Martin, who popped up as a surprise guest, saw his U.S. streams jump 145%. That stage didn't just shine lights, it multiplied careers. Streaming money doesn't show up as one clean, flashy number you can circle and say, that's it. But what it does is way more powerful. More streams mean more algorithm love. More algorithm love means bigger playlist placement. Bigger placement means fresh listeners discovering the catalog. And those listeners, they turn into ticket buyers when the next tour drops. It's a chain reaction that keeps stacking up long after the lights fade. The Super Bowl halftime stage isn't just a performance slot. It's the biggest free marketing machine in American entertainment. Whoever stands in the center of it walks away with something money can't simply purchase. Attention at scale. And when Bad Bunny stepped into that spotlight, the ripple effect was instant. The social numbers tell the story even louder than the charts. Total social media consumption of the halftime show exploded to 4 billion views in just 24 hours, a 137% jump over the previous year. The National Football League saw its 3 most viewed social posts ever come from this single performance. One clip captioned, "Only thing more powerful than hate is love," racked up 179 million views on Instagram, the most viewed post in NFL history. Another clip of Bad Bunny naming the countries of the Americas pulled 168 million views on its own. Even the press conference shattered records. It drew 63 million views in its first 48 hours, becoming the most watched Super Bowl press conference ever on YouTube. And the halftime performance video, 66 million views and counting. That's not just exposure, that's cultural impact hitting at full force. For comparison, the rival All-American halftime show, organized by conservative groups on YouTube and headlined by Kid Rock, pulled in 21 million views. That sounds big, until you stack it next to 4 billion in 24 hours. That kind of reach blows past core fans and crashes straight into casual viewers, global audiences, and people who had never once searched Bad Bunny before, but woke up the next morning typing his name into their phones. According to Nielsen, the halftime show averaged 128.2 million viewers. That places it 4th all-time, behind Kendrick Lamar's 133.5 million in 2025, Michael Jackson's legendary 133.4 million in 1993, and Usher's 129.3 million in 2024. Peak viewership during the game's second quarter hit 137.8 million Americans, the highest peak ever recorded in U.S. television history. Even more telling, the halftime show itself outperformed the game's overall broadcast average. That's power. But the number that really explains why the National Football League wanted Bad Bunny front and center came from Telemundo. The Spanish-language broadcast of the halftime show averaged 4.8 million viewers, the most-watched Spanish Super Bowl halftime ever. NFL senior VP Marissa Solis made it clear, league growth is mathematically impossible without Latino audiences. And the data backing that up? It's loud and undeniable. More than 39 million Latino fans follow the National Football League in the United States. Latino viewership climbed 11% in the years leading up to this game, and Spanish-language broadcasts jumped 34%. A 2025 projection from McKinsey & Company estimated that by 2035, Latino fans would drive 1/3 of all U.S. sports market growth. That's not a side audience, that's the future of the business. So when Bad Bunny stepped onto that halftime stage, he wasn't just booked talent, he was a calculated move. A long-term investment in a fan base the league had been steadily building toward for years. The strategy was clear and the numbers backed it up. Now zoom out to his bigger financial picture and the impact gets even sharper. Heading into 2026, his estimated net worth hovered around $100 million. Forbes ranked him 10th on its 2025 highest-paid musicians list with $66 million earned that year alone. And get this, $30 million of that came purely from Spotify streams. He pulled in 19.8 billion streams, making him the platform's most streamed artist of the year. Then there's his Puerto Rico residency, a 30-show run titled No Me Quiero Ir de Aquí. Economic impact estimates ranged from $176 million on the low end to $733 million on the high end, depending on the method used. One artist, one location, hundreds of millions flowing through the economy. That's not just star power, that's leverage at a national scale. What one artist can do for an entire regional economy is massive, and none of that comes from a Super Bowl paycheck because that paycheck basically doesn't exist. The real return from the halftime stage isn't a wire transfer, it's a cascade. Streams surge, albums post their strongest weeks, social reach multiplies overnight. Casual viewers turn into long-term fans, future tour dates sell out faster, and an artist's cultural weight jumps to a whole new level that no traditional ad campaign could ever manufacture. That stage handed Bad Bunny a spotlight so bright that everything he built before it got amplified, and everything he builds after it now starts from a higher floor. That's the hidden power of the moment. But one part of this story can't be boxed into charts and percentages. He performed the entire Super Bowl halftime show in Spanish, the first artist in history to do that. That decision wasn't random. Months before kickoff, he had publicly said he would not tour parts of the United States out of concern for his predominantly Hispanic fan base and the broader climate they were facing. So when he stepped onto that stage and chose to perform fully in Spanish, it wasn't just artistic preference, it was a statement, and the timing made it impossible to ignore. Donald Trump called the selection absolutely ridiculous. After the performance aired, he posted that the show was absolutely terrible and one of the worst ever. The backlash didn't stop there. Several conservative lawmakers filed complaints with the Federal Communications Commission, triggering a formal investigation on February 16, 2026. Weeks later, the FCC confirmed the show had not broken any broadcast rules. Case closed. But here's the twist that flips the whole narrative. Back in October 2025, Bad Bunny appeared on Saturday Night Live and challenged viewers to learn Spanish before the Super Bowl. After the halftime show aired, Duolingo reported a 35% spike in new Spanish learners during and immediately after the broadcast. That's not just entertainment. That's cultural momentum moving in real time. A halftime show sparking a language learning surge isn't something you can neatly plug into a revenue chart, but it says everything about influence. The financial story and the cultural story are locked together. One spreads the message, the other measures the impact. On February 8, 2026, he stepped onto that stage, earned roughly $1,000 a day, performed fully in Spanish for 128.2 million viewers. including a record 4.8 million watching on Spanish-language television, and shifted the conversation in a way numbers alone can't fully explain. And here's the part nobody can ignore. The morning after the Super Bowl, the headlines weren't about how much Bad Bunny got paid. They were about impact, influence, shift. The conversation moved from dollars to dominance, because when an artist can headline the biggest stage in American television, perform fully in Spanish, face political backlash, spark federal complaints, ignite a 35% spike in language learning, and still walk away with record-breaking streams. That's not luck. That's positioning. The halftime show didn't make him famous. He was already there. What it did was elevate his ceiling. It widened his audience. It locked his name into a space that used to feel untouchable. Corporate brands saw it. Stadium promoters saw it. International markets saw it. And most importantly, fans who had never pressed play before suddenly did. This is why the $1,000 headline misses the bigger picture. The real payout shows up in the months and years that follow. Faster sellouts, stronger negotiating power, bigger global leverage. The check was small, the return, massive, and the ripple didn't slow down in the weeks that followed. It sped up. Ticket platforms reported search spikes tied directly to his name. International media outlets that had never centered Spanish-language albums suddenly ran front-page features. Late-night panels debated the performance for days. That's not just buzz. That's repositioning. Before the halftime show, he was already a global force. After it, he became unavoidable. The difference matters. Brands that once hesitated now lined up. Festival organizers recalculated their headliner strategies. Even radio programmers who had dragged their feet on Spanish records started adjusting rotations. Exposure at that scale forces hands. And here's the deeper play: leverage. When an artist proves they can command 128 million viewers without switching languages, without diluting identity, without playing it safe, the negotiating table looks different. Contracts shift, percentages change, creative control expands. That's the invisible currency. The halftime show wasn't about a single night. It was about resetting the baseline. Every future tour announcement, every brand partnership, every release now launches from a higher starting point. That's compounding influence in action. A small upfront check, a global audience unlocked, and a career that moved into a new tier almost overnight. That's how you turn visibility into power. He brought out Ricky Martin and Lady Gaga and turned the field into a global spectacle that racked up 4 billion social media views before the next day even ended. Bad Bunny saw his US streams jump 470%. His album delivered the biggest sales week of his career, and 3 of the National Football League's most viewed social posts ever all came from this one performance. That's not random. That's impact stacked on impact. The Federal Communications Commission reviewed the broadcast and found no violations. Duolingo reported a surge in Spanish learners. Donald Trump criticized the show twice. Noise everywhere. Momentum still rising. The halftime stage has never been about a paycheck. Every artist who steps into that spotlight knows the deal. The payment isn't wired, it's amplified. The show offers something bigger, a moment so massive that it lifts everything connected to your name. He arrived already dominant, Spotify's most streamed artist of 2025, a Grammy Awards winner, a 9-figure earner. The halftime show didn't create that success. It magnified it for people who had never been watching. No check, just scale. And everything that followed proves he knew exactly how to flip that scale into long-term power.
And I'm with the queen of rap,
We seriously need to talk about the Grammys last night because the noise didn't start on stage. It started way before the cameras even rolled.
Okay, obviously I can't complain about this. This isn't me complaining, okay? But I just got offered 2 tickets to the Grammys tonight. I had no intention of going to the Grammys tonight. Look at me. Everyone is booked. What do you do?
Every award show sparks debate, but this time people were already heated before the first performance even happened, and the mood online was loud and messy from the jump. Before the televised show kicked off, fans noticed the same old move again. Most of the awards were pushed into the pre-show.
Listen, I knew that getting tickets to the show was going to be really difficult, but I thought that would be just because of how many people were getting in the queue. I did not think that it was going to be because of the price. What the actual is this? These are the actual ticket prices for the Harry Styles Together show? Are you for real?
The Grammys pre-show aired around 12:30 p.m., hours before the main broadcast at 5 p.m. Pacific time, and more than 80 awards were handed out off camera. That had people asking why the biggest night in music keeps hiding the actual wins. Big names like Lady Gaga, Ariana Grande, Cynthia Erivo, and plenty of others were announced as winners during the pre-show. But here's the problem. A lot of artists were backstage getting glam and ready for the live broadcast, so many weren't even there to accept their awards.